Hi, I'm Kelsey. I'm 26. I currently live with my parents, and I am a huge Marvel fan. Can you read that? Can you see that? So much so that over the past 5 years, I have been running a podcast with my dear friend Dylan Randazzo called Marvelous Movie Mondays, where we discuss, well, all things Marvel. We also run a Marvel Trivia League that I was once the title-holding champion of, until I wasn't. And I have never seen a DC movie. Well, that's actually not true. I'm already lying to you. I have seen Christian Bale's Batman trilogy, Birds of Prey, and Blue Beetle, but that's it. That's it, I swear. With James Gunn's new Superman movie coming out in July, I thought that it was never a better time than to dip my toe into a franchise that, for the most part, I have not explored, and finally settle the debate, who makes better superhero movies, Marvel or DC? Do people even debate this? I don't even know. The only vibe that I get from the DC universe is that their movies aren't very good or do as well as the Marvel movies, but that's just what I feel like I get fed from, like, the pop culture zeitgeist. Am I using that word correctly? Zeitgeist? That's a big word for Elmo. But before I get into the DC films, I think it is only fair if I first rank the entire MCU, just so that I can directly compare and contrast to see how the DC films are holding up against the Marvel ones. But before I get into my biased-ass ranking, I wanted to crunch the numbers, gather some evidence, collect some data, if you will, just to see if by stats alone the MCU is better than the DC films. So I got an average score of each film from both franchises using their IMDb score, their Rotten Tomatoes score, and their Letterboxd score, added those all up, and got a complete average franchise score for both Marvel and DC, and the results will shock you. Or they won't. I don't know. I guess we're about to find out. At the time of filming this, the MCU currently has 36 films, whereas the DC universe has 41 films. So by default, you'd think that DC would get the higher number, right? Wrong. After adding up the average score of every MCU film, they got a whopping 221.1 points, making the average rating for an MCU film about a 6 out of 10, so a little bit above average. After adding up all of the DC films, they got a whopping 198.3 points, making the average rating for a DC film of 4.8 out of 10. So a little bit below average. And even though DC was the proud owner of the lowest rated film, 1997 Steel, with a 1.8 out of 10, they are also the proud owner of the highest rated film, which I'm sure is a surprise to no one, The Dark Knight, with a 7.6 out of 10. But of course, this is just what both franchises look like on paper. Some of the MCU film scores I didn't agree with at all, either being too high or too low. For example, Captain America Brave New World and Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania are tied for last place with a score of 4.3, but I think Anthony Mackie's first Captain America movie was much better than whatever the fuck Quantumania was. And the highest rated MCU film with a score of 7.2 was Spider-Man No Way Home, which I don't agree with. So, with all of that out of the way, let's finally get into phase 1 of this video, which is my complete ranking of the MCU. And to all you DC fans out there, I just want to say, sorry, I'm new here. Welcome to my office. Don't say anything bad about it. You'll hurt my feelings. Okay, something I just want to address right off the top here is a question you might be wondering to yourself. If I'm talking about every single DC film in existence, why aren't I talking about every Marvel movie in existence? Well, I have seen some of the Marvel films that are made outside of the MCU. I haven't watched all of them. And that's actually a series that Dylan and I do for our podcast called The First Avengers Files. And I am nothing if not a loyal hoe, so I will not be watching those films without him. Love you, Dill. I figured the best way to get a proper ranking of both franchises would be to use some numbers. So I came up with a 5-category system, each worth 5 points, giving each film the opportunity to get 25 points total. Now, when coming up with these categories, I needed to ask myself, what is it that I like so much about superhero movies? With the help of my friend Matt of Maddie Loves Movies, I was able to break it down. I decided that my favorite aspect of a superhero movie is the message, the moral of the story, if you will, the point of it all. What is the movie trying to say? Next is the characters. Are these people I can relate to? Do they have interesting relationships with one another? Do they undergo any kind of growth or evolvement? I feel like you can't talk about the superhero genre without discussing the visuals. Do the sets look good? The costumes, the action, do the visual effects look good? Do they all enhance the world building? And do I find them to be believable? My 4th category is style. Some of my favorite MCU films are so heavily influenced by other film genres or by the director's particular style, and it makes the movie feel completely unique. And lastly, a question that I asked myself with each film was, how likely am I to rewatch this? The rewatchability of it all. Now that I've gotten the score for every Marvel movie, I'm going to put the MCU films into a tier ranking. My bottom 2 of the day, when it was all said and done, was Thor: The Dark World and The Incredible Hulk. I just really don't feel the need to go back to those 2 films. I think that stylistically, they're both pretty boring. My first movies of my C tier, some of y'all are about to be real mad at me, but it must be said. Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I didn't lose my mind over this the way that the rest of you did. There are just other MCU films that I like more than this one. Apparently there's a lot more MCU films that I like more than this one. Also, I think that Doctor Strange is so weird in this movie. Right behind Spider-Man No Way Home in the C tier is The Marvels. This one was a lot of fun. I thought that it was like a little half-baked, a little underdeveloped, a little too rewritten and reworked and reshot. I think that if they just let Nia DaCosta like do her thing, and if this movie were a little bit longer so that we could really develop the relationship between Carol and Monica, I think that would have been a lot stronger. I think Aman Vellani was great in this film. I thought that the visual of them switching with their powers were great. There could have been more there. My next film in the C tier underneath the Marvels is Avengers Age of Ultron. Nothing super interesting to look at really with this film. I think that we get some great character stuff with Wanda and Pietro, but as we know, Pietro does, eat it in this film. Okay, my next film going underneath Age of Ultron is Thor. I think that stylistically, this movie was definitely making some choices. Very regal, very Shakespearean. His eyebrows were certainly a really strong choice. I just don't know if any of it is really working for especially a commercial audience and like a commercial franchise as big as the MCU got. I think that there's great character stuff between Thor and Loki, and for Thor especially, I think this is the film that he probably does the most growing in. I don't need to watch this one again and again and again and again the way that I feel for some others. Next on the C tier is Ant-Man and the Wasp. This movie has a lot going on, and I don't think any of it is super successful. Also, when I was trying to find the overall meaning of this movie or the message, I couldn't really think of anything. Because, you know, when we first meet Scott Lang, like, he's a criminal, but he's a criminal because he was trying to give back. He was looking out for the little guy. And then, by becoming Ant-Man, he figured out how to look out for the little guy in a figurative way and a literal way. Scott Lang's whole goal has always been to just be a good dad for Cassie. And he keeps getting roped into things because Hope and Hank are kind of like selfish people and are like, no, we're going to blackmail you into helping us. Not a strong film for me. Next film going underneath Ant-Man and the Wasp is Iron Man 2. Justin Hammer is the best part of this movie. I don't like when they make characters regress in a series for little to no reason at all. Tony Stark started out a cocky, narcissistic asshole in Iron Man 1, figured out that he shouldn't be that way anymore, and then immediately went back to doing that in this film. So I don't like this one as much. I'm about to eat my words right now because I did say that I liked this film much better than another film in the intro, but it's been a few days since I wrote that, and I think I feel differently. When the numbers got crunched, this is what happened. My next film is Captain America: Brave New World.
But I think Anthony Mackie's first Captain America movie was much better than whatever the fuck Quantum Mania was.
I have a lot of the same issues with this film that I did the Marvels. I said everything that I need to say about this movie very recently in a podcast episode with Dylan. So if you want to hear my complete thoughts about this one, you can check out that video. Next is Thor: Love and Thunder. The arc of Gore the God Butcher and the atmosphere that surrounded that character didn't match anything else that was going on in the film. We all agree that this one's not great. And then last but not least, on the bottom of my C tier is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Yeah, this one was just like a mess. And now it's seemingly obsolete because Kang the Conqueror has been written out of the MCU. So this movie doesn't even really matter. Okay, on to the B tier. I'm going to start with my bottoms this time. The bottom of my B tier is Ant-Man. Ant-Man is a solid watch. It's a decent movie. I think it earns some points for me because I think tonally it shifts a little from the other MCU films that are a little too generic. Next, above Ant-Man in the B tier, I have Iron Man. This movie is a very solid watch. It's a safe watch for sure. I think that the visuals could be a little bit more interesting, but I think that there's some obvious great character stuff happening in this one. But overall, like I said, a really solid watch. My next film going right above Iron Man is Captain America: The First Avenger. I just like the period piece element of this film. I think that stylistically it's a little bit more interesting than Iron Man. I think that Iron Man is a little bit too generic sometimes, a little too generic action superhero movie-esque. The only problem that happens with Captain America is that he starts so good and unwavering that he almost doesn't have anywhere to go. And I think the message of this movie is like, fuck Nazis. Not fuck Nazis. Like, we don't like them. That's a great message. We need that message today in 2025. Moving above Captain America: The First Avenger, I have The Avengers. Loki's a great villain in this movie. Because there's so many moving parts to this movie, getting all 6 of them together, it loses a little bit in stylistic points because they couldn't really commit to anything other than like, this is a superhero action movie. Moving above The Avengers, I have Deadpool and Wolverine, which, as we know, is canonically in the MCU. I can just see myself going back to this one more than the other few on my B tier list. Moving above Deadpool and Wolverine, I have Doctor Strange. Now, this is a movie that I actually think really fondly of because I think that Doctor Strange in this movie specifically, I think he does some really great growing. Doctor Strange gets into his accident. He loses the one thing that he knows he's really good at. He's obviously this cocky asshole, thinks he can do whatever he wants, thinks he's invincible. That's why he drives the way he does that night. Him being a hotshot neurosurgeon was all he knew. And he lost that. And so I just really like the message of this movie of kind of like losing a part of yourself so you can find a new version of yourself that might even serve you even better. Yeah, and I think visually this movie's very interesting, and stylistically this movie becomes something very unique compared to the rest of the MCU. Funnily enough, our next movie that we're going to talk about is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Stylistically, Sam Raimi does something. He's in his own league. I think that they totally fumbled the bag when it came to Wanda's character and her devolvement in this movie. When I remember this movie, I think about, you know what I think about? I think about the fight that he had with himself, with like the music notes floating in the air, and I think about the horror elements like in the tunnel with Wanda popping up out of nowhere, and I just think I'll go back to this one more than I would go back to the original Doctor Strange. The next movie that I have above Multiverse of Madness is Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel, I think it has a great message in it. You don't have to be the person that everyone's telling you that you have to be. It's important for you to discover who you really are, and I just think that this movie has a lot of feminist beats in it that obviously I respect a lot. Above Captain Marvel, we have another Captain movie, Captain America Civil War. I think that there's obviously a lot of great character stuff, mostly for Tony in this film, and it's solid. Coming above Captain America Civil War, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Obviously, a James Gunn movie is going to be what a James Gunn movie is. It's going to be funny. It's going to be colorful. It's going to have a lot of heart in it. It's just, I like the other two Guardians movies better. And my top rated MCU film on the B tier is Spider-Man Homecoming. I think the reason why I like this movie so much is that it has a very like youthful, juvenile, comedic energy to it. It reminds me of Ant-Man in that aspect where it's like tonally feels a little different compared to the other movies in the MCU. I also think that the moral of this story is actually something that Tony says to Peter, which is, if you're nothing without this suit, you shouldn't have it, because it allows him to kind of discover this inner strength within him. Okay, second to last tier. This is like really the ones that I like a lot. Coming above Spider-Man Homecoming. I love this movie. It's Iron Man 3. I think that because he's coming off of what happened from the Battle of New York in this movie, it allows him a slight disadvantage to this Iron Man because of his PTSD and his struggles with anxiety in this movie, you know? I think that there's a great message in this movie, which is the work that you need to do mental health-wise isn't something that you can fix with a physical solution, which is what he tries to do in this movie with building all of the different Iron Man suits. I just think a lot of great things happen in this movie. Coming up above Iron Man 3 is Black Widow. I love this film. I love that stylistically it has like an espionage, spy thriller undertones to it. I love the dynamic of Natasha's family. Whenever I think of this movie, I think of the intro that plays with that eerie rendition of Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. Oh, it stuck with me, you know? Coming up a little bit above Black Widow, I have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Now, when I came up with the category of style, I had this movie in mind specifically. Not only does Shang go through some pretty good development in this movie, we also see that, same as Natasha, Shang has to revisit his tragic past in order to grow as a person in the future. I just love how he kind of has to reconnect with his dad, his sister. I love how Awkwafina's character has growth in this movie as someone who starts very just a valet, same as Shang, to finding a passion. All in all, I like this movie. Okay, so now we have back-to-back Avengers films happening here. I'm putting on the board Avengers Infinity War, and then a little bit above that, Avengers Endgame. I just think I like revisiting Endgame more, is that it doesn't leave me with the eerie hopelessness that Infinity War does. And I realize that the message with Infinity War is just like, sometimes you're gonna lose. And just saying that out loud to myself, I was like, damn, that hurts. Moving on, a movie that I like a lot, that seemingly the franchise loved to hate was Eternals. The visuals in this movie are 10 out of 10. So I'm excited to see what happens next with the Eternals. I don't know if anybody else is. I don't know what people aren't seeing with this movie, but I loved this movie. Now we're going to talk about my favorite of the Spider-Man trilogy, which is Spider-Man Far From Home. What I find so interesting about this film is that Peter Parker, Spider-Man Homecoming, all he wanted to do was be Spider-Man. And this movie, all he wants to do is be a kid. He's literally like, Nick Fury's calling me, block him. I don't want to answer that phone call. Really, the message for me at the end of the day with this film is like, just trust your instincts. Part of the reason why I like this movie is I like watching Jake Gyllenhaal get his ass beat. You saw my Taylor Swift vinyl up there. I told you I was a loyal hoe. What did you expect? And to finish off my A tier, I have another back-to-back situation. So the second to last movie that we're going to talk about at the top of our A tier is Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and the top of my A tier is the original Black Panther. I just think that the original is not as heavy, so it's a much better rewatch. I think that visually and stylistically and message-wise, I think that Wakanda Forever is stronger in those aspects, whereas with the original, it's much more upbeat. You get all that good music. I mean, it was nominated for Best Picture for a reason. There's not much more I have to say about it. Which brings us to our final tier, our S tier. These are the 5 movies that are damn near 25 out of 25s for me. The first movie that I want to talk about of our S tier, it's Thor Ragnarok. Okay, listen. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I was picking up what this movie was putting down. I was buying what Taika Waititi was selling. It's colorful, it's fun, it's got a great villain. This is Taika Waititi at his best. I think that Thor Love and Thunder is him at his worst. I think that there's really great moments for Thor and Loki in this film. What makes watching the relationship between Thor and Loki in this movie feel different is because I think that this is the time, and really the only time, that he has any intention of actually changing and becoming a better person for Thor. This film for me is a 5 out of 5. I'm so sorry if that upsets you. It is what it is. And I do make the rules, and I do follow them because it is my video. Next on our list, might be a crazy case of recency bias, but I've seen this movie twice now in theaters. I liked it even more the second time, and that is Thunderbolts. I think that Thunderbolts has a great message in it. There's great characterization. There's great relationships. There's a relatability, again, with like the mental health aspect going on with all of these characters. I really like the look of the Void being all black, and then the effect he has where he's shadowing people throughout the film. I think it's a really cool effect, and it's really eerie, and it's really mysterious. You don't know whether or not these people are dying, if they're going somewhere else. It's good. It's solid. I like it. Leave me alone. Next on our list, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I mean, James Gunn is gonna do what James Gunn is gonna do. Taking a slight edge above Guardians 3 is my favorite of the Captain America trilogy, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I think the same way that I think that Thor Ragnarok is Taika Waititi at his best, I think that this movie is the Russo brothers at their best. There's really great hand-to-hand combat. I love the use of Natasha in this film. The moral of the story is basically just like, don't let an organization, even if it's the one that you work for, get too powerful, because that's how you lose some of your freedoms in that way. And that's something that Captain America understands more than anybody, is that he doesn't want to see anybody become what Hydra was in the 1940s. He's a man of the people. He's the people's princess. It's sexy. It's a sexy movie. And last but not least, my favorite MCU film From the very beginning, it has not changed throughout the years that I've been an MCU gremlin. Guardians of the Galaxy. It's great. It's a found family. It's colorful. It's fun. It's exciting. Great character dynamics. Great growth for everyone in this film. They go from being like criminals, misfits, to teaming up together, to being willing to sacrifice themselves by the end of this film. Lots of great music, obviously. I've said it once before and I'll say it again. This movie is everything that I want a movie to be. It's funny. It's heartfelt, it's action filled, it's thrilling, it's exciting, it's perfect. It's a perfect film. Now that I have all of my MCU films ranked and I kind of know what I want for sure out of a solid superhero movie, I think it is officially time to dive into the DC films and see how they stack up. Now I'm going to cut to me on a different day, in a different outfit, saying something else. Hello, it's me, on a different day, in a different outfit, saying something else. I've just watched a bunch of movies from a lot of years ago, and here are my thoughts. Starting off my DC journey was Superman and the Mole Men, and I'm happy to report that I liked this movie a lot more than I thought I was going to. Before I get into my summary, I need you to know that I knew very little about Superman's lore going into this. The only things I knew were the Taylor Swift song, The Ride at Six Flags, and that one line from that One Direction song. You're my kryptonite. You know which one I'm talking about. So there's that. Basically what happens in this one is Clark Kent and Lois Lane work together as newspaper reporters, and they travel to a small town in America to write a story about the world's deepest oil well. But the oil people drilled so far into the earth that they actually hit an underground society of mole people who travel upwards to explore Earth's surface. Now, the mole people are generally harmless, but they are radioactive, so they do accidentally kill a guy, which incites mass hysteria in the small town. So basically, Superman has to stop the townspeople from forming an angry mob and killing them for little to no reason. Overall, I thought this movie had a great message about not hating outsiders just because they look a little different from us, especially after we drilled into their home. Hello? I liked the characters in this one, especially the Mole Men, because I didn't realize how much I was going to root for them, because I thought, based off of the title, that the Mole Men and Superman, there's only one Superman. I thought that the Mole Men and Superman were going to be adversaries, but you know what they say about assuming things. You know what they say. I will say I didn't really think that they looked like moles. I didn't understand why they were bald on the top, because as far as I know, moles have hair like everywhere. If my memory of what I think a mole looks like is serving me, I'm pretty sure they're like covered in hair. A quote I wrote down was, "He's Superman. If he can't stop them, no one can," which I want to say is like his catchphrase or something, but again, I don't know a ton about Superman. The visuals were fine for 1951 standards, and the style was kind of that like classic old movie style, so that was fun. If this movie does hit a streaming service, I could see myself watching it again just because it is only an hour long. All in all, I gave this one a 16 out of 25. Not a bad start. Batman 1966. Holy shit. The complete tonal shift between this one and the wholesome Mole Men movie genuinely gave me whiplash. This was the goofiest movie I've ever seen, and I can't believe it was a Batman movie. My overall impression of Batman was that he was a pretty serious dude, but I guess he didn't start that way. Batman and his young ward Robin have to stop a criminal syndicate consisting of the Penguin, the Joker, the Riddler, and Catwoman. So basically every well-known Batman villain is just on the loose in Gotham City. I guess this Batman is just not that good at his job. Basically, all they want to do is take out the biggest world leaders by dehydrating them, this is not a joke, and turning them into dust. Along the way, all of the villains use their own methods of trying to stop Batman. Catwoman seduces him, the Riddler sends him riddles, the Penguin disguises himself and infiltrates the Batcave, and the Joker pretty much just mans the torpedoes the whole movie and giggles. And that's his whole thing. A torpedo hates to see him coming. In the end, Batman is able to fight a shark, get rid of a bomb, and rehydrate all of the world leaders, but when he does so, they all end up in each other's bodies. Kind of a Freaky Friday situation, and indirectly it causes world peace? Question mark? Couple things. This whole movie, I could not stop thinking about Catman from the Fairly Odd Parents. Call me crazy, but I think that character is based on this Batman movie. I think he's even voiced by Adam West. Anyway, I finally understand that bit from that show, like 20 years later. Anyway, Batman is a total himbo in this, and when Catwoman and Bruce Wayne kiss, Robin is jealous. That is a fact. Because this movie is so silly goofy, I couldn't really find a deeper meaning in it. The characters are wackadoodle, but entertaining nonetheless. The style and the visuals are really what sold me for this one. It's very bright and colorful and fun, very cartoonish. My only complaint is that because this movie is just one big bit, I think if it were a tight hour and a half, it would have been better. I think that it just got a little old for me and went on a little too long. I think this movie evokes the same feeling that some drugs do. Like, I did it once, I had my little trip, but I don't need to experience that again. So I gave this one a 13 out of 25. Okay, I learned a lot about Superman with this one. I know you know all of this, but I didn't. So here's my little recap. At the beginning of this film, on the planet of Krypton, 3 criminals are banished to the Phantom Zone. We never see or hear from these people again, so it doesn't matter, whatever, move on. Then, the planet blows up, so Superman, aka Kal-El, is sent as a baby, butt naked, not even a diaper, to Earth, and is taken in by Martha and Jonathan Kent, and they name him Clark Kent. It is revealed to them in the first few seconds of meeting this unsupervised child that he does have extraordinary abilities, so they do everything they can to raise him as a normal boy. One day after Papa Kent dies, Clark realizes that he should be doing more with his powers, so he moves to the big city of Metropolis, where he starts working for the newspaper The Daily Planet, and he meets, you guessed it, Lois Lane. Meanwhile, this evil dude by the name of Lex Luthor starts plotting like a real estate scam or something. I don't know, arguably the most boring crime in existence. But when he hears about this guy, Superman, he starts plotting ways to get rid of him so that he can just go about doing his crime stuff. So he lures Superman to him with a bomb threat and then exposes him to his one weakness, kryptonite, like from the song. Were you paying attention? Were you taking notes? You're my kryptonite. You keep making me weak. Yeah, frozen and can't breathe. And that's exactly what happens to Superman. He's frozen and he can't breathe. He's also like drowning in a pool. Superman then has to convince Lex Luthor's companion Eve to free him of the kryptonite so that he can stop the 2 missiles that Luthor sent in opposite directions from hitting Earth. After he stops the one from hitting New Jersey, shout out, he is unable to stop the one headed for the West Coast, so that causes mass destruction and Lois's death. So Superman pulls an Uno reverse on the Earth and flies around it so fast that time reverses and he saves her. And like, let me just say, like, that's a man. That's a man. If he doesn't fly around the Earth to reverse time for you, he's not worth it. I liked this one. At some points I did think it was a little corny and I didn't care about a single second of Lex Luthor's screen time. He was just really boring to me and therefore the movie did feel like a little long for me. I think the best stuff in this film is all of the Lois Lane, Clark Kent / Superman stuff. I think that she's really spunky. I love that she's her own person. She's good at her job. And who wouldn't have a big fat crush on Superman? Like, she's so real for that. That being said, the interview scene is the best scene. I loved the chemistry between the two of them. For the most part, I thought the message was kind of generic. I thought the visuals were fine. And even though I don't necessarily see myself watching this one again, I did like the characters and I loved the duality between Clark Kent and Superman. So I gave this one a 13.5 out of 25. I didn't like this one very much. First of all, they give you this crazy long, here's what you missed on Glee style recap where they remind you of the 3 criminals that were sent to the Phantom Zone in the first movie because they are the main antagonists in this one. So I hope you were taking notes and I hope you were paying attention to the first 5 minutes of Superman 1 from 2 years ago. After Superman rescues Lois at the Eiffel Tower, her and Clark Kent are sent on assignment to Niagara Falls, and she is starting to become a little suspicious that Clark is Superman. She's a smart woman. She is a woman in STEM. So by testing her theory, she throws herself into the Niagara River, hoping that Clark Kent will change into Superman to save her, and he does save her, but he does so as Clark Kent. So she feels a little embarrassed about that. That was like a high-risk, high-reward situation. Shortly after this, though, back in their hotel room, Clark sticks his hand into the fire and obviously doesn't get burned, so he's kind of forced to reveal to Lois that he is, in fact, Superman. Later, he takes Lois to his Fortress of Solitude, where he undergoes a transformation to become human, seemingly just so they can smash. I guess it's like a Hulk situation where, like, if things get too hot and heavy, he'll, like, accidentally kill her. Talk about a high-risk, high-reward situation. Regardless, now he's human, and he picked a terrible time to become human because Zod and his 2 followers are here on Earth, and they want to kill him. They want to kill him, and they could do it because Superman bleeds now. Lex Luthor is involved somehow, so he teams up with the Kryptonians and kidnaps Lois to lure Superman into their trap. Superman is able to convince Luthor, though, that Zod and his 2 buddies are a threat to everyone on Earth, so he ends up helping Superman defeat them. Character development, maybe. When all is said and done, Superman does turn Luthor into the proper authorities, and back at the Daily Planet, he kisses Lois and uses his telepathic abilities to erase her memory of Zod and the fact that Clark is Superman. The uptake in quality in this one compared to the first one was like crazy. I guess the budget got way bigger because the picture was clearer, the colors were brighter, it was way easier on the eyes. But I did think that most things about this movie were pretty generic, pretty run-of-the-mill superhero movie, so nothing too special to say about it. It does have some great Lois and Clark stuff, but I just do not care about Lex Luthor. You cannot make me care about Lex Luthor. I won't. I find him annoying. So this one got an 11.5 out of 25. If I'm looking down a lot, that's because that's where my script is. You think I'm doing all of this off the cuff? In the swamps of the American South, scientists Dr. Linda and Alec Holland are working on a formula that will combine the DNA of plants and animals, making food a more abundant source on Earth and virtually eliminating world hunger. After another scientist goes missing, government agent Alice Cable is sent there to investigate, where she meets Charlie Ritter, who tells her about the evil genius Anton Arcane, who intends to hijack the whole project and make it his own. Once Linda and Alec have a serious breakthrough and realize that one of their experiments actually worked, Ritter reveals to be Arcane in a mask, very Scooby-Doo of him, kills nearly everyone including Linda, but before he can take the formula from Alec, it spills all over him, setting him on fire and forcing him to dive into the swamp for safety. With the combination of the formula and the swamp water, Alec is transformed into a giant green monster referred to as Swamp Thing. With Alec nowhere to be found, Arcane and his men take what's left of his research and burn the laboratory to the ground, but not before Alice can take one of Alec's notebooks. This is important. So once Arcane realizes that one of I'm gonna call him Dr. Holland. So once Arcane realizes that one of his notebooks is missing, he sends his men after Alice and the Swamp Thing because he wants to experiment on him. They get captured, brought to Arcane's lair, which is seemingly filled of strippers and criminals. Didn't expect to see yiddies in this movie, but alas, I did. At Arcane's lair, he announces that he himself has a formula that works and he intends to use it to experiment on his loyal followers, starting with one named Bruno. Bruno is tricked into drinking the formula and then morphs into a very small warthog-like creature. So Arcane goes to Alec and is like, what the heck? Why didn't this work? Why didn't he become a strong, cool, sexy monster like you? Alec says, the formula will enhance whatever you already have inside of you. It's giving super soldier serum. I'm just gonna say it. We're all thinking it. But that gives Arcane an idea. Since he thinks he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, if he takes the formula, he'll be the strongest, smartest being on the planet. But when he takes it, he turns into a werewolf pig hybrid. He fights Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing slays him. It's a slay. Sorry I said that. And he saves Alice and the day is saved. So I thought that once I saw Wes Craven's name pop up on my screen, that he was the writer and director, I thought that this movie wouldn't be terrible, but it was pretty bad. It just felt very low budget, very student film, very a bunch of NYU grads got together and were like, let's make a superhero movie, but a parody of a superhero movie. If you live and die for Swamp Thing, I'm happy for you. I will not be joining you in that cause. This movie is like one long chase sequence, and it gets really old after a while. It makes the character of Alice Cable feel really useless because all she does is get chased and captured and chased and captured. If anyone chooses to watch this movie, I encourage you to make it a drinking game and drink every time someone is thrown into the swamp water, because I'm not kidding, you'll get a good buzz going within like the first 20 minutes of this movie. Not that I'm encouraging binge drinking. The only light at the end of this very long tunnel is a character that I didn't mention in the summary because the summary was already too damn long, but it's a character by the name of Jude, and he's a young boy who's seemingly living alone on the swamp, who Alice befriends and then protects during the second half of the movie, but unfortunately he couldn't save the rating for this movie, which is my lowest one yet, which is a 9.5 out of 25. But now we get to talk about my favorite movie so far, Superman 3. At the beginning of this film, we are introduced to Gus Gordon, a down-on-his-luck, unemployed guy riding the struggle bus who sees an ad for a computer programming school. He starts working for a man by the name of Ross Webster, and through his now enhanced computer skills, he embezzles $85,000 to himself. Meanwhile, Clark is invited to his high school reunion where he reconnects with his high school crush, Lana. He meets her son Ricky and saves him as Superman and tries to convince Lana to move to Metropolis. After Ross and his sister Vera confront Gus about the money he embezzled, they decide to use him to do their dirty work, threatening him that if he does not comply, they will expose his crime to the authorities. In their quest to become seemingly the richest people ever, they first go after the coffee industry and try to burn down America's largest coffee distributor, but Superman foils their plan. In an attempt to get Superman out of their way, Ross and Vera tell Gus to make kryptonite, but there is an element in it that Gus has never heard before, so he replaces it with tar, rendering the kryptonite a little faulty. So when Superman comes in contact with it, it doesn't kill him, it just makes him a giant asshole. Okay, wait, it doesn't physically like make him like a giant butthole. It makes him a huge jerk, is what I'm trying to say. So he starts doing some pretty un-Superman-like things, like ignoring the pleas from civilians and blowing out an Olympic flame. Eventually, with another run-in with Lana's son Ricky, he has a bit of a mentee B where he splits into two versions of himself, Clark Kent, the good version, and then like the anti-Superman. Clark defeats the scruffy Superman and gets back on track trying to stop Ross and Vera. Gus promises them that he can make them a supercomputer that will make doing their evil bidding a lot easier, but it becomes sentient, tries taking over, turns Vera into a cyborg, and eventually Superman convinces Gus to help him to stop the evil siblings. So then Superman gives Gus a job recommendation to work at a coal mine, but Gus ultimately decides that that line of work is not for him. Okay, Richard Pryor as Gus, amazing. From the moment I saw him on screen, I was immediately hooked. I was immediately into this one. Also, all of the Superman movies so far have been doing a really great job of giving the antagonist a really cool evil lair. The sets are really detailed and practical. It's very immersive. Also, the comedy sequence right at the top of the film was giving me flashbacks to Batman 1966, which I can't tell is my fight or flight kicking in or a bit that I really enjoyed. I even liked the character of Lorelei Ambrosia, played by Pamela Stevenson. I liked how she wasn't just this stereotypical dumb hot girl. You actually find out that she's been secretly really smart the whole time. Although I did like the chemistry between Clark and Lana, I did miss Lois in this one. Yeah, her and Clark/Superman have been the best parts of all of the Superman films for me, so not having her in this one was kind of a major bummer. My favorite part of this film was the anti-Superman. Because first of all, Christopher Reeve is a great actor. He does such a great job of balancing not only just the contrast between Clark Kent and Superman, but now adding this third layer of having like a jerky Superman. I like the look of the anti-Superman. They made his suit darker. It was like a more maroon, more muted tones. They gave him a 5 o'clock shadow. I just love the subtleties and the details of that. I think what was really impressive on Christopher Reeve's part was that the anti-Superman could have felt really goofy and cartoonish, but it felt really grounded. Also, the message of this one being don't take advantage of people down on their luck and don't use AI. 18 out of 25. This one's really interesting because there's a lot that I liked about it, but then there's also a lot that I didn't like about it. Kara Zor-El is a teenager living in the Kryptonian community of Argo City when her mentor, Zoltar, accidentally loses the orb that powers their community, the Omegahedron. They said it so often in this film, but I don't remember how it's pronounced. Kara then volunteers to be the one to retrieve it. She tracks it to Earth, where she discovers that she has powers very similar to her cousin, Superman, and it ends up in the hands of a carnival psychic, Selena, who longs to be a witch. To draw less attention to herself, Kara disguises herself as a human teenager by the name of Linda Lee and enrolls in a private school where she meets Lucy Lane, the sister of Lois Lane. Selena starts to use the orb to do evil things like enchanting a himbo to fall in love with her, except when Kara rescues him and he wakes up from his trance, he falls in love with Kara, who is disguised as Linda, a teenager, and he is a grown man. So, gross. Eventually, Kara faces Selena head on, but she ends up in the Phantom Zone where she runs into Zoltar, who has actually banished himself there for losing the orb to begin with. With his help, Kara is able to escape out of the Phantom Zone, but it does cost Zoltar his life. R.I.P. Zoltar. Back on Earth, Kara arrives just in time to rescue her new friend Lucy and stop Selena from taking over the world. She retrieves the orb and swims home to Argo City, where all is restored. When I first watched this, I didn't realize that Kara was supposed to be a teenager, and all of my complaints throughout the film was about how dumb I thought Kara was. So when I learned that she was like 16, I was like, all right, I'll give her some grace. What I liked about this movie was that it was very woman-centered, you know, female hero, female antagonist, female side characters. I felt very seen in this one. What I didn't need was the whole grown man falling in love with a teenager side plot. I know, controversial. I mean, I guess I kind of get it because they felt like they needed to give Kara a love interest because what is a woman without a man? Who knows? The biggest problems with this movie is that the visuals are dog shit. They were bad. They were bad to look at. I didn't find the character of Selena to be all that threatening because I was kind of confused about what she was able to do with her newfound powers. She kind of just declared herself the queen of a small town and then built a mountain. And once again, I just feel like this movie was just too damn long. I pretty much gave this movie 2s across the board, so 11.5 out of 25 for me. What a weird nothing movie that didn't have to be made. It was only an hour and 30 minutes and a lot happened, but also at the same time nothing happened. Basically, Superman comes to the conclusion that the biggest threat to mankind is man itself. So he decides that the only way Earth can truly know peace is if he takes everyone's nukes, and all of the most powerful countries in the world happily oblige. Which would never happen. Lex Luthor is back in the picture, unfortunately, because he is broken out of prison by his nephew, Ducky, aka John Cryer, aka... I don't remember his character's name in this. Lex Luthor decides that if he kills Superman, everyone will no longer feel safe, so they'll all want their nukes back, and who will they buy them from? Lex Luthor, of course. So Lex Luthor makes his own version of Superman called Nuclear Man by firing a nuke at the sun. Seems dangerous. And he and Superman fight in space, and Superman wins. There's also this whole B-plot where a father-daughter duo come into the Daily Planet and try to take it over and remarket it as a sleazy tabloid. There's also a whole double date sequence where Lacey, the daughter, thinks that she's on a date with Clark Kent, while Lois thinks that she's on a date with Superman, so he has to keep switching identities like every 30 seconds. And in the end, the newspaper is saved and nobody has any nukes, so world peace, I guess. This movie is so bizarre because it has nothing to do with any of the previous Superman films. Like, for example, Lana was given a job at the Daily Planet in the last Superman movie, but she's not in this one at all. And, like, Lois is barely in it as well. At the beginning of the film, we also see Clark Kent trying to sell his family's farm in Smallville, and nothing ever comes to that. Also, the other major villain in this movie, Nuclear Man, I don't think said one word. Like, quite literally, I don't think that he has any lines. Once he was created, the first thing he did was attack the Great Wall of China, which feels racially charged. There wasn't much I liked about this one, so 11 out of 25. This one was such a waste of time. Like, what a joke of a film. Here's my very brief summary. Basically, Dr. Anton Arcane is back somehow, and he's on a quest for immortality, so he needs his stepdaughter's blood to do so. So Swamp Thing comes in and saves her. There are these two annoying little kids in it for some reason, and I'm sorry, but like, how is this guy alive? Like, he turned into a werewolf pig and then was slain. The first thing I noticed about this film is that it was listed as a comedy. So I guess they really heard the feedback from the last Swamp Thing, which was this is a hilariously bad movie, and just decided to really lean into that. But that's the biggest problem, is that they tried to make it so camp that it doesn't work at all. The jokes don't land, the acting is terrible, these two little kids are so annoying, and the action is laughable and not in a good way. 5 out of 25. And we're back, baby. It's been a long time for me. It's not going to be a long time for you. It's going to feel continuous. But for me, it's been like over a month since I filmed all of that. Honestly, who knew that making a video about 41 films was going to take a really long time? In Gotham City, crime bosses basically run the town, bankrupting the city and terrorizing its citizens. Their only hope is Bruce Wayne, a billionaire industrialist who moonlights as the masked vigilante Batman. At his annual charity fundraiser, Bruce Wayne meets photojournalist Vicky Vale, who is determined to expose Batman to the public. Meanwhile, some policemen are also there to get an anonymous tip about crime boss Jack Napier's location, so Bruce Wayne follows them to a chemical plant. While there as Batman, he fights Napier and drops him into a vat of chemical waste, which alters his appearance forever. Now, with a permanent grin on his face, Jack takes on the identity of Joker and begins wreaking havoc across Gotham City. At one point, he tries poisoning everyone with a gas known as Smile X. During one of their battles, Batman learns that Joker was actually responsible for his parents' death, and in return, Joker learns Batman's true identity as Bruce Wayne. In one last kerfuffle, Batman attaches a grappling hook to Joker's leg just as he's about to get away, which causes him to fall to his death, saving Batman and Vicky. The Tim Burton of it all is really what sold me on this film. The visuals are very dark, it's very film noir. I think this is a great example of a superhero film really taking on a director's particular style and making it feel like a completely built world. The one downfall of this movie is that it is a Batman movie, and I didn't find myself caring for the character of Batman, at all. To me, this is more of a Joker movie, and even then I felt like his descent into madness happened a little too quickly. I think it would have been a more interesting choice to watch him kind of slowly lose his mind and get more and more clownish. All that being said, I did think that it was a solid watch, and I could see myself going back to this one. So, it got a 16.5 out of 25. This one was just a character piece, I feel, which is fine because it was a stacked cast. 33 years in the past, Tucker and Esther Cobblepot welcome their newborn son, but because of his deformities, they decide to send him in his bassinet down the river. Cut to present day, and the boy, known as the Penguin, who has spent his whole life living amongst the penguins in Gotham City's sewer system, has decided that he wants to join society. He blackmails businessman Max Schreck into giving him access to the city's birth record so that he can find his parents, and he discovers that his real name is Oswald Cobblepot. See, Max has bigger plans for Oswald. He wants to make him the new mayor of Gotham City so that his plans to build a new power plant that will drain Gotham City of its electricity just so he can sell it back to the people are approved. Meanwhile, his assistant Selina Kyle uncovers his plans, so he pushes her out a window, killing her. But the neighborhood stray cats revive her and turn her into Catwoman. Selina, with her new personality and taste for vengeance, sets her sights on Max, but she seemingly has a bone to pick with everyone, especially Batman. Did I finish writing this summary? So she decides to team up with Oswald to frame Batman for a crime and kill him. Meanwhile, Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle start having a relationship unbeknownst to them who their masked identities are, until the pair share a dance at a charity ball and they accidentally reveal their identities to each other. Once Batman foils Oswald's plan to become the next mayor and the city turns on him, he reverts back into his penguin persona and plans an attack on all the firstborn sons in Gotham City. Once that plan fails, he decides to send an army of penguins to the center of Gotham City with rockets strapped to their back. This is a real sentence I'm saying, but Batman intercepts the signal on their mind control devices, so they return home to the aquarium. Selina Kyle shows up to the sewers to kill Max Schreck, using one of her last lives to do so. She kisses him, electrocuting him, and seemingly dies, but in the alleyways of Gotham City, Bruce Wayne thinks he sees her silhouette in the shadows. The Tim Burton-ness is in full force in this one. This one is dripping with Timmy B. And also, I guess the message of this one is don't abandon your baby even though it has deformities. Those monsters Although, again, I do not care about Bruce Wayne at all. I don't know why he has to be so bland. The other surrounding characters around him make up for it. Danny DeVito clocked the fuck in with this role. His Penguin was so gross and ugly, but he still found a way to make me feel bad for him and to care about him like deeply. I just wanted to give him a hug, but I also didn't want to get too close at the same time. But then he did threaten to kill a bunch of babies, so I no longer felt bad for him. Michelle Pfeiffer also fully committed to the bit. At some point, I didn't really know what Catwoman wanted. It felt like a minute there that maybe her whole objective was just utter chaos, but like, I feel like I could get behind that. I liked her character as the shy assistant. I liked her during the transformation, and I liked her post-transformation. Like I said right at the top, the style was just oozing in Tim Burton. The sets and the props were amazing, from everything to the Penguin's giant duck, to the penguins themselves, to the giant bird cage that Christopher Walken is just chilling in. The costumes were perfect, and I could definitely see myself watching this one again. 17.5 out of 25. Batman today, Batman tomorrow, Batman forever. The biggest plot twist of my life was finding out that this was not a Michael Keaton movie. That this is in fact Val Kilmer. I'm not kidding. I think I was like 20 minutes in before I even realized. See, I just assumed that every guy who played Batman got a trilogy. I was wrong. In a flashback, we learn that District Attorney Harvey Dent was attacked by crime boss Sal Maroni with acid, leaving permanent scarring on half of his face, causing him to develop a split personality known as Two-Face. On the second anniversary of his attack, Batman has to save a guard from suffering the same fate, and in doing so, he meets Dr. Chase Meridian, a criminal psychologist. At Wayne Enterprises, we meet Edward Nygma, who is building a device that will send television waves right into someone's brain, but Bruce is put off by this device because he believes that it could be altered and used for mind control. Feeling rejected, Nygma kills his supervisor with the device, takes on the persona the Riddler, and teams up with Two-Face to kill the Batman. Meanwhile, Bruce takes Dr. Meridian out on a date to the circus, but it is hijacked by Two-Face. Not in his Batman garb, Bruce is feeling stuck, but one of the acrobats, Dick Grayson, saves the day by throwing the bomb out of the circus right in the nick of time, but not before his entire family is killed by Two-Face. Bruce takes Grayson in, and when he learns that Bruce is Batman, he insists on becoming his partner. Later, at another event, Nygma uses the device on Bruce Wayne and discovers his identity as the Caped Crusader. Now that the Riddler knows Batman's true identity, he kidnaps Dr. Meridian and Grayson, forcing Batman to make a choice: the woman he's in love with or his new partner in crime. Or not in crime, in do-gooding? Good doing? Anyway, Batman is able to save them both, saying that he cannot make a choice because Batman and Bruce Wayne are one. In the final moments, we see Two-Face seemingly fall to his death, and the Riddler is taken to an insane asylum where he claims that he is Batman. Now, this movie is a big deal in the land of the Dill Pickle Movie Network crew, specifically for Chad of Picture This and Matt of Frame Wreck. Now, Matt actually wanted to talk about a different Batman movie. Tease for what's coming next, I don't know. So for this one, I had a brief conversation with Chad. So here is an abridged conversation of our chat. Well, hello, Chad. Thanks for coming to talk with me about Batman Forever.
This movie's special to me because I was 5 when it came out.
Okay, cute.
I'm like the perfect audience for this movie. It's a very silly movie.
I think that's probably a great way to describe it. Now, I was hoping that we would be able to get on and you'd kind of be able to like sell this movie to me, because it's not that I didn't like this one. I thought that it was okay. I gave it a pretty like average, middle of the road rating. I definitely didn't think that it was like a waste of time or anything like that. I had a good time.
If you're expecting it to be like The Dark Knight, I mean, that's just not what it is. I mean, you know, with the first 2 Tim Burton movies, yeah, mostly serious, like kind of gothic and dark.
For me, the lack of the Tim Burtonisms of it all is what's kind of disappointing for me for this film. Because coming off of Batman 89 and then especially Batman Returns, which is, I think, my favorite of this stretch of Batman movies. And to have this, it just felt like an element was missing almost, you know?
I mean, honestly, I mean, it's just very different. So I can totally see like somebody vibing with a specific kind of Batman and not with another. I'm a very silly person, so you know, a lot of the times if something is very silly, I might actually like it. You know, I actually like the Adam West ones too, and I think those get a little too silly sometimes as well. But it's weird how like, you know, Joel Schumacher was able to kind of keep a lot of the gothic stuff that Tim Burton was going for, but just then make it silly and just turn the silly dial up. Because Joel Schumacher wanted to make it more like comic booky, I feel like that's kind of why a lot of people, myself included, vibe with it a lot, because it's not afraid to be like weird and maybe not make a whole lot of sense sometimes.
That I don't mind. I would rather a movie make a really strong stylistic choice than like keep things generic.
Yeah, like with Batman Forever, it's kind of like a microcosm of like a bunch of different things that were happening like the mid 90s, where you have Chris O'Donnell. He was a big heartthrob back then, so of course, you know, he's kind of strange as Robin a lot, but he's just acting cool, you know, trying to impress like all the ladies watching. And then you have Jim Carrey, who like 1994 was like one of the biggest years for him, and so here was like at the height of his popularity. Like I like the moment when he's like sitting in the chair going like getting all the stuff going into his brain.
Yes.
Despite other people maybe finding it super obnoxious, for me it's just childhood and nostalgia.
The last time I had seen Harvey Dent, he was a totally different dude who was very like, he wasn't really a prominent character in the movies up until this moment. So I just wish that they had either used this movie to kind of like craft Harvey Dent and then make him into Two-Face, similar to how The Dark Knight does his arc, at least with Jim Carrey's character, Edward Nygma, like we see the transformation. So I definitely was drawn to his performance like way more.
The Riddler, his whole kind of, you know, transformation is basically like Catwoman's from Batman Returns. But it is really cool with Two-Face how they do it, because in like The Dark Knight, you know, it's just like he's like a tragic character, right? They just show like the fall of Harvey Dent. Tommy Lee Jones has that too, but he also has all the other stuff that deals with like the duality. Like he's back, he has the two women.
He definitely had more of like a jumpy split personality thing going, where like he would almost start arguing with himself. Like he had two different guys living within him.
Turn to the side and then go like, you know, hi Kelsey, and like, what are you doing, Kelsey?
What was also fun for me watching Batman Forever was that I really didn't know Robin's whole backstory.
I do actually really like their relationship and how they come together, and how, you know, the one orphan identifies with the younger orphan.
So do you think then that like Val Kilmer's Batman, because he's so serious in this, do you think that's like a good contrast to what's going on? Or do you think he's kind of like in his own movie and now it's like kind of a detriment to the tone of it all?
There are some times where I'm wondering if Val Kilmer's Batman is kind of like flat sometimes.
I never really found myself caring that much about Bruce Wayne or Batman for that matter. Like it was always about like the surrounding characters around him that were much more interesting.
I mean, I think like Batman and Robin in Batman Forever is like a really cool like relationship and story.
Chad, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit right now. So for the message of this one,
I mean, I guess like, you know, the different themes, like, you know, like family and stuff with Batman and Robin. For message, I'd probably go like 2.5.
for the characters,
I'd say 4.5 out of 5.
the visuals,
5. All of like the Riddler's like different looks. And then like the costumes of Two-Face's ladies. His suit is different, split down the middle.
Yeah. See, I knew you were gonna sell me on this film. I'm feeling much better about it now. Okay, this kind of goes along with what we're talking about, style. I feel like this is gonna be another high score.
Yeah, I'd also give it 5 for style.
And then lastly, how often do you find yourself going back to this one, Chad? Do you just throw this one on, or have you not seen it for a while?
I don't come back to it too often, but rewatching it for this, I was like really excited and engrossed. I guess I would say 4 out of 5.
All right, whopping 21 out of 25. I'm really glad that Chad loves this one because it's a classic from his childhood, but I've got some notes. Based off the length of my summaries for these past couple of films, I'm starting to wonder if maybe they're doing too much. Are they biting off more than they can chew? Would it be more successful if they just stuck to one villain? I don't know, just a thought. Obviously, Jim Carrey is doing his Jim Carrey thing in this one. The blueprints for the Grinch were being written. He was definitely the most interesting character for me. Now, Nicole Kidman's character, on the other hand, Dr. Chase Meridian, is clearly a woman written by men because she is a woman with a PhD and she just walks around in like lingerie most of the time and her hair is constantly blowing in the wind and her whole character is basically there just to obsess over Batman or crush on Bruce Wayne. All in all, I gave this one a 13.5 out of 25, which basically means I had an above average experience, and I think that's accurate. A new threat comes to Gotham City in the form of an Iceman known as Mr. Freeze, who, you guessed it, freezes people after an accident at the cryogenics lab he worked at. He now has to depend on a diamond-powered suit to survive, so he needs diamonds. He also needs to continue the research for his wife's incurable disease known as McGregor's syndrome. Meanwhile, in the trenches of a Wayne Enterprises research lab, a mad scientist makes a super soldier serum out of a chemical called venom, turning a lowly prisoner into Bane. Dr. Pamela Isley, who is also experimenting with venom, using it to make her plants more powerful, gets into a fight with her supervisor and has all of her experiments, including the venom, dumped on her, turning her into Poison Ivy. Using Bane as her henchman, she vows to continue her research on plants, turning them into weapons to combat the destruction of planet Earth. After seeing Mr. Freeze at an event at the Botanical Gardens, Poison Ivy teams up with him so that they can both take down the Batman and carry out their plans. Meanwhile, Alfred, who is also diagnosed with McGregor's syndrome, has a niece show up to Wayne Manor, and he reveals to her that he created a suit and superhero identity for her known as Batgirl. With the help of Batgirl and Robin, Batman is able to defeat both Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy. I'm not delusional. I know this was not a good movie. The two biggest problems with this one are the dialogue, which if it isn't just filled with exposition, it's some of the corniest lines I've ever heard, and the action looks terrible. All of the fights are just overacted. No one looks like they're in any real danger. Because of the way that they're shot, it doesn't even look like anyone is making contact with one another. They're just ludicrous. But the budget must have been through the roof for this one because the sets, the props, and the costumes all look amazing. The production design was good. Sue me. What do you want me to do? Lie to you? The sets are so detailed and intricate and immersive. Uma Thurman's look as Poison Ivy is great. Also, I think that the turmoil happening between Batman and Robin is definitely the most interesting stuff. And it manifesting into a competition to earn Poison Ivy's affection, I think could have been a really solid plot point if all the other ridiculousness wasn't happening around it. Also, another new Batman. I didn't know that some people just did like one Batman movie. All in all, is this movie a little goofy? Yes. Will I be watching it again? No. Is my score a little higher than you were expecting? Probably. 12.5 out of 25. This movie was boring. Let's just get through it quickly. John Irons works for the military, developing enhanced weapons. One of the soldiers in his platoon, Nathaniel Burke, uses one of his inventions incorrectly, causing the destruction to ricochet back into them, hurting John's friend, Susan Sparks. Burke is discharged from the military and John quits after the incident. Once back in California, Burke plans to become an arms dealer and teams up with an arcade manager to get John's inventions out of the military and onto the streets of LA. Therefore, John and Susan build a suit for John completely made out of steel and work together to get the weapons off the street and to stop Burke for good. Okay, first of all, John Irons is played by Shaquille O'Neal and he is a comically large man. It works when he takes on the identity of steel because that's a great quality to have as a superhero, but when he's just having a scene with Judd Nelson as John Irons, it's silly. The message of this film is definitely the strongest aspect for me, which I interpreted as don't take advantage of a marginalized community by selling them weapons of mass destruction, and military-grade weapons have no business being in the hands of civilians. Wonder why we haven't figured that one out yet? Everything else is very meh for me. The visuals, the characters, the style, it's all very middle of the road. It's not really interesting enough to complain about for long, so I'm just gonna move on. But I do need you to know that Shaquille O'Neal does save the day with basketball, because he picks up a grenade and he throws it through a hole in the fence, similar to a ball going into a basket. 10 out of 25. Oh boy. Aspiring artist Patience Phillips is a shy outcast working in the design department of a beauty product company. One night, after delivering a project assignment to her boss after hours, she discovers that the beauty product they sell, Beuline, is causing harmful side effects to people, including death. To ensure the secret does not get out, her boss, Laurel, has her killed, but Patience is saved by the local cats and wakes up with cat-like abilities. Not understanding what's happening to her, Patience returns one of the stray cats to her neighbor, Ophelia, who gives the vibe that she knows a lot more about Patience's situation than Patience does. Frightened, Patience tries to go back to work, but an alternate personality begins to emerge within her, talking back to her boss and causing her to get fired from her job. Liking her newfound confidence, Patience flirts with policeman Tom Lone, yells at her neighbors, and finally tries on the leather outfit gifted to her by her best friend. After she stops a jewelry store heist and fully embodies the persona of Catwoman, Patience wants to learn more about what happened to her. She asks her neighbor Ophelia, who explains that the night that she got her powers was also the night someone tried to murder her. This puts her on a quest to find out who and why. Eventually, she learns it was her boss, Laurel, and she is determined to get revenge and stop the production of the deadly skincare product. In the end, Catwoman defeats her enemy, but ends things with Tom because she wants to live a life untamed. This movie was an assault on my eyeballs. The graphics, the weird color grading, the edit, it was all really offensive. I understand this movie is 20 years old, but it just felt like especially bad. I understand she's supposed to have cat-like abilities and qualities, but sometimes she starts moving in a way that defies the laws of physics in a way that truly unsettles me. This whole film was very hard to watch, which is not what you want in a movie. Okay, so now let's get into everything that I hate about the plot. Catwoman's origin story is essentially the same. She starts off awkward and mousy, discovers something she shouldn't, gets killed for it, but is saved by the neighborhood felines. But in this version, the big secret that she learns is about the beauty industry. And I get that people are dying, but those stakes just don't feel as high. It felt like the writers were trying so hard to connect with women that they were like, oh, you know what women like? Makeup. So at first, I thought maybe it's going to be a giant commentary on the beauty industry and how it profits off of women's insecurities. But any hope for any feminist undertones completely went out the window when she entered the screen in her second look as Catwoman in this dominatrix ass looking, I can't even call it a suit, it's just chains and a bra. And I'm not saying that dominatrixes can't be strong feminists, but Catwoman's a superhero, or at this point, someone who's going to be fighting other people. She needs a sensible outfit, at least something that's going to guarantee she's not going to have a nip slip mid-battle. Not to mention she's wearing open-toed shoes to fight crime? I don't even wear open-toed shoes when I know I'm going to be walking around New York City a lot. To make matters worse, the final fight is between two women when it was the man who was the problem the whole time. It was infuriatingly bad. It set feminism back a few decades at least and was truly an eyesore. 5.5 out of 25. I gave a half point for Alex Borstein, who plays her best friend. Two things. We're going to talk about suicide with this one, and this movie did in fact give me nightmares. John Constantine is an occult detective with the ability to see half demons and half angels living on Earth. Full-fledged angels and demons are not allowed to access Earth, but they are able to influence humans. Elsewhere, police detective Angela Dotson is shocked to hear of her sister's death, especially because it was ruled a suicide, and her sister was a devout Catholic and would not take her own life as it is a mortal sin. She turns to Constantine's help after she reviews the footage of her sister's death and notices in the video her sister Isabel mouths Constantine's name. Together, they discover that Isabel was just the pawn in a greater scheme. Lucifer's son Mammon is planning to overthrow his father and invade Earth, but he needs an assistant from God and a psychic to do so. Angela reveals to Constantine that her and her sister had psychic abilities, and the assistant from God he is using is Gabriel, one of Constantine's close friends. To stop Mammon and Gabriel, Constantine takes his own life and reveals Mammon's plans to Lucifer. So, Lucifer grants Constantine one wish, which he uses to save Isabel from an eternity of torture in hell. Lucifer then turns Gabriel human, and Constantine punches them in the face to show them what pain is like. And that's how the movie ends. I thought this movie was fine. I find that movies that are heavily based on religious lore are sometimes really dense and hard to follow, but that might just be because I'm not a religious person and am kind of dumb. Even with its dated graphics, I still appreciated that it fully committed to a style that made it feel a little different from a stereotypical superhero movie. Honestly, during the first 30 minutes, I checked like 3 times to make sure that this was even a DC film. I'm still not that confident even as I talk about it right now. And I guess the message of this one is suicide is bad, which is a good message to have. I don't really see myself watching this one again. 11.5 out of 25. I've watched so many DC films at this point, it feels like my eyes are beginning to glaze over. I'm so glad I've already seen this one, and I liked it even better the second time around. Now, Batman Begins is the first proper origin story for Batman. First, we see a young Bruce Wayne fall into a well and get attacked by bats, causing him to have a bat phobia in his adult life. Moments later, we see a young Bruce with his parents out at an opera, but he asks to leave the show early, and when him and his parents step out onto the street, they are both robbed and murdered. Years later, in his adult life, Bruce Wayne carries the weight of his parents' death on his shoulders, so he trains with a man by the name of Ducard, who is the leader of a League of Shadows, virtually turning himself into a weapon so he can combat the crime running rampant in Gotham City. When Bruce returns to Gotham City, he starts working in the applied science division of his father's company, Wayne Enterprises, and he meets the very intelligent Mr. Fox, who supplies him with a protective suit and car, which allows him to take on the identity of Batman. Meanwhile, psychologist Dr. Jonathan Crane teams up with mob boss Carmine Falcone to bring a hallucinogenic drug into Gotham City, poisoning the water supply and making people believe that they are going crazy. With the help of Police Sergeant Jim Gordon, Batman is able to capture Falcone and create an antidote to the drug. Just when Bruce Wayne is starting to believe that all is right with the world, Ducard shows up to his birthday celebration at Wayne Manor with the League of Shadows seeking revenge on Bruce for how he left the Shadows. They also intend on destroying Gotham City. Batman stops them, reveals his true identity to love interest Rachel, oops, I forgot to mention her, rebuilds Wayne Manor, and becomes the rightful owner of his dad's company. A couple of years ago, Dylan and I made an April Fool's episode on our podcast about this trilogy, and my one minute complaint about it, besides the absolute nothing character that Rachel ended up being, which is why she was not really mentioned in the summary, was the title. I didn't like it. I changed my mind. Now that I've watched all of the other Batman movies that came before this one, there is no other movie that is a true beginning. This is Batman's beginning. Batman is beginning. Batman begins. It all makes sense now. I still stand by the fact that Christopher Nolan just does not know how to write women. He's better off just making movies by men for men. The visuals are great. The characters are great. This is like the first Batman movie that I actually gave a shit about Bruce Wayne and/or Batman. So that was great. Sometimes it does feel a bit generic, but I definitely would watch this one again, considering this is the second time I've seen it. Also, Christian Bale is hot. He's hot! He's hot! What do you want from me? So this one gets a 16 out of 25, which seems low, but I stand by my ranking for this one. It's a 16 out of 25, and I know that sounds low after I gave it pretty much a glowing review, but I had to dock some points for the fact that, like, Rachel sucks, and there wasn't a lot for me to connect with besides the fact that Christian Bale is a good-looking man. But that can only get you so far, you know? Luckily, there is a lot more zest with the next Christian Bale Batman movie we're gonna talk about, so stay tuned. But first, a message about Superman Returns from 2006. After 5 years from disappearing from Earth, believing that some Kryptonians might have survived the destruction of Krypton, Superman is back on Earth, and so is Lex Luthor. While Superman was gone, Luthor infiltrated the Fortress of Solitude and stole 5 energy crystals, planning to create his own plot of land so that he could charge people to live on it. Also, with the help of his companion Kitty Kowalski, Luthor breaks into the Metropolis Museum of Natural History and steals a block of kryptonite. After one of the stolen crystals comes in contact with a model train set, the force is so great it causes a power outage in the city. Lois Lane, still a reporter at the Daily Planet, pleads with her boss Perry White to write a story about the power outage, but he insists that she write a story about Superman instead. Superman pays a visit to Lois, who not only has a fiance but a 5-year-old son as well, and allows her to interview him again. Once Lois turns the interview in to her boss, he allows her to investigate the power outages. Through her research, she discovers that the origin of the power outage was actually a fancy yacht, so she goes to investigate. Not realizing that the yacht belongs to Luthor, her and her son are held captive there as Luthor reveals his plans to her. While one of his henchmen is distracted, Lois sends a fax to the office with her coordinates on them, and Jimmy Olsen is able to recognize her handwriting, and he alerts the office. Her fiancé, James Marsden, don't remember his character's name, and Clark spring into action. Before Superman can get there, Lois's son saves her from one of the henchmen by seemingly throwing a piano at him. Very suspicious. James Marsden finally gets there just in time for the yacht to start sinking to the bottom of the ocean. Superman then goes to confront Luthor on his new plot of land, which is entirely made out of kryptonite. With Superman powerless, James Marsden, his name might be Richard, and Lois go to save Superman and remove the kryptonite from his body. With his powers back from the sun, he throws the landmass out into space, causing Luthor and Kitty to escape via helicopter, but not before Kitty releases the Kryptonian crystals into the ocean. In the end, Superman is taken to the hospital to remove the remaining kryptonite from him, but human medicine is not advanced enough to save him, so he ends up in a coma. In the final moments of the film, Superman's hospital room is found empty. Okay, I'll be honest, the first half of this movie, I didn't care. The last time we saw the character of Superman was nearly 20 years ago, and I didn't understand if this story was supposed to be a continuation of those movies, which doesn't make a ton of sense because everyone would be like 100 years old or something like that. I just didn't understand what he was returning from. You know what I mean? It felt like a sequel that didn't have a prequel. By the second half, I was invested. Although this movie didn't have the same charm that the earlier Superman movies had, I still found myself caring a lot about the characters, especially about Lois and her son and what this means for her relationship with Superman, especially because this kid is 100% Superman's kid. Like 100%. What makes it even more complicated is the fact that James Marsden's character isn't even like a jerk or anything. He was just trying to save his family at the end, and I was getting choked up. This was also the film that I realized that Lex Luthor is just a giant colonizer. Like, he just wants land and a lot of it. He was definitely more interesting in this film than the previous films, but he was also Kevin Spacey, so ew. Parker Posey made up for that fact. 13 out of 25 for this one. We've all seen this one, right? We know what it's about. I don't need to do the summary. Okay, fine, I'll do the summary. At the top of the film, the Joker and his goons rob a bank in Gotham, getting away with all of the money in a school bus. Lieutenant Jim Gordon investigates the crime scene and informs Batman that the Joker has struck again. Batman is not too worried about the Joker and insists that if they keep tracking the money, it will lead them to all of the crime bosses in Gotham City. With the help of Rachel Dawes, District Attorney Harvey Dent has the same goal. After dining with Rachel and Harvey, who are in a relationship, Bruce feels that he could probably give up being Batman because Gotham City is in good hands with Harvey Dent as the district attorney. Meanwhile, the crime bosses have a meeting with their shared accountant Lau, and he explains to them that he moved their money to a safe place and has fled to Hong Kong. Gordon and Dent ask Batman to bring Lau back from Hong Kong so that he can testify against the criminals. But before any arrests can be made, the Joker has the police commissioner and judge killed. He also says that until Batman reveals his true identity, he will continue to kill people, which causes the city of Gotham to call for Batman's arrest. The Joker then crashes a fundraiser at Bruce's penthouse to get to Dent. Bruce hides Dent, and then as Batman saves Rachel from the Joker, but not before he tosses her out a window. In downtown Gotham, at a 21-gun salute to honor the late police commissioner, the Joker points a gun at the mayor, but Gordon jumps in front of the bullet. The next day, at a press conference, Dent reveals that he himself is Batman. As Dent is being taken into custody, the Joker intercepts the convoy, but Batman stops him. Right before the Joker is about to kill Batman, one of the SWAT team members apprehends the Joker and reveals himself to be Gordon. Holy shit, so much happens in this film, oh my god. While in custody, the Joker has Rachel and Harvey Dent kidnapped and brought to opposite sides of the city, rigging both of them to explosives and giving Batman not enough time to save both of them. He goes to what he believes is Rachel's location, but actually arrives to where Harvey is being held and saves him just as the bomb explodes, disfiguring half of his face. Gordon and his men are too late to save Rachel. The Joker then breaks free from custody and sets forth his next plan, threatening to blow up a hospital unless a man from Wayne Enterprises is killed. Gordon has all of the hospitals evacuated, but Joker blows up Gotham Central, which is where Harvey is being treated. He survives the attack and goes on a killing spree in Gotham, having a much more negative outlook on life after Rachel's death. He decides who lives and who dies by the flip of a coin. Meanwhile, the Joker pulls his last stunt, which is rigging two different ferries full of explosives and giving each other the other's detonator, one filled with civilians and the other filled with criminals. He explains that one of them must blow the other up before midnight or else they both will perish. Batman finds the Joker in an abandoned building with the detonators and is able to foil his plan. Harvey, on the other hand, kidnaps Gordon's family and threatens to take away his loved ones. Batman is once again able to show up just in the nick of time, saving Gordon and his family, but accidentally murdering Harvey in the process. Now, I know the biggest Batman fan, seemingly ever, and when given the choice as to what movie he wanted to talk about with me, he picked this one. This is the long-awaited combo between me and Matt about The Dark Knight.
Hi, Maddie Fresh of Maddie Loves Movies.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me on my little side quest.
I love anytime I get to come talk about a Batman movie, especially getting to talk about one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. I'm very excited about that.
Since I've been, watching all of them in release order now, I've seen the Batmans from the 80s and 90s. And it was so interesting comparing what this trilogy does for the character compared to what it was doing for the character back in the day. I just loved how this movie balanced out the dynamics between Joker, Batman, and Harvey Dent. He's so well done. His whole arc I found really being the heart and soul. Batman says it at the end. Joker proved if he could get to the best of us, then he's able to kind of take down our whole city in a way.
The first time around, I was upset that they killed Harvey Dent. I was upset that they killed Two-Face. I was like, no, keep him around. He's such a classic villain. By the time I watched it the second time, got all the way to that part at the end, I was like, oh, they have to. Gotham needed a hero, and it couldn't be Batman. And it couldn't be Harvey Dent while he was alive. It had to be basically this martyr.
Yeah, Matt, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because that is exactly the storyline that stuck with me for my second rewatch of this film as well. You either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. He says it, and then he lives that arc.
I love that line. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I do think that it is misused way too often, because the internet loves that line, and they will always use it when someone falls from grace. They quote that line as though this is always going to happen to a person. The reason that bugs me a little bit, number one, because it is said in the movie by someone who is obsessed with duality. Number two, it's kind of the thesis of the movie for that character. It is true for him, and it is true for Batman. It is true for those two people who, as we know from the movie, are the binary. They are the opposite sides of the coin. So it is true for those two characters as a thematic element. It is not true for everyone in the world, and my beef with it is the internet, not the movie.
Also, one of my first notes that I took watching the movie was that I loved the introduction to each character, because I just feel like they were so seamless, and it told us everything that we needed to know about each character, which is also an element that I felt like I was missing from the older movies. The last time I saw Harvey Dent / Two-Face was in Batman Forever. And in that one, to me, he feels super random, because the last time I saw Harvey Dent before that, he was a black man. And then all of a sudden, he was Tommy Lee Jones.
That whole opening scene with the clowns and everything, that opening scene is so good. It's such a perfect introduction to the Joker, as you were saying, because it shows how smart he is, but you learn basically all you need to know about Joker before he takes off his mask and you realize he's in the scene. You are learning everything about him, learning his character, learning all that you need to know, and you don't realize that he's been there the whole time. It's a very genius.
I guess a lot of people then were going to it, trying to compare it to Jack Nicholson.
When they announced the casting of it, the internet lost its mind, because the last movie he had done that got much note was Brokeback Mountain. Once we all saw it, no one questioned it ever again. You never heard that anymore.
Yeah, because that's just so interesting to hear, because I'm I've seen Jack Nicholson do the Joker. What Heath is doing with this role is so singular. What he's doing is in its own league. Also, one of the characters that I cared deeply about the entire time was Gary Oldman's character. That whole sequence also leading up to with the motorcycle, and they called it something funny when I was reading the IMDb.
The Bat Pod.
The Bat Pod! Finally, we get some cool stuff in this movie that he uses.
Each different phase of the Batman mythos in film, as you're going through, then you get to this and it's okay, we're going through the origin, we're seeing his gadgets, we're seeing the kind of the resourceful billionaire type. Each time they get it a little bit more right, it makes me happy. In this one, they get the character very, very right compared to what it was before.
I will say, I have one teeny tiny critique for this movie. I'm wondering if you have any notes to give it, or if you think it's perfect at all. Sometimes I feel like it's so one note, and there's not enough hills and valleys along the journey. I feel like three things happen back to back to back. Okay, so he crashes the party. Everyone at the party's in danger. Harvey Dent's in danger. Then after the party he kidnaps Harvey Dent and Rachel, and now Batman has to make that decision. And then, now they have to make the decision on the ferry. Who's going on in the ferry boats? It just felt like the same stakes kind of over and over again. And I was just wondering if you felt that at all. Maybe I'm I'm just being a little nitpicky because really, like we were talking about, like there is a tension right off the bat. But what I'm worried about is that, is it just that same tension the whole movie? Like, I feel like I never really get a break. And is that maybe the point?
That is kind of the point. And the reason is because a main thematic element of this film is chaos. And Joker being an agent of chaos, you'll notice that in his scenes, they're always very fast and they're always very chaotic. When it cuts over to like Bruce and Rachel, or Bruce and Rachel and Harvey, it slows down just a little bit. You know, it's less frenetic in those scenes than it is in the other one. There is a chaotic nature to the way that the pacing goes in this movie, which to me is why it just flies by. And then once we're done with Joker, I think the tension is a lot different. Once we're done with Joker, it's just a different type of tension. I think there are several different types of tension, but they don't let up. I can see how you would come to that conclusion because it is just like tension. My issue with this movie is not this movie. My issue with this movie is that this trilogy takes place over 10 years and he's only Batman for 2 years.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here.
Oh no.
Now, you had mentioned that you're pretty much always down to clown with this movie and watch it. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 5 out of 5 for that one. So the message that you really seem to have a really clear understanding of is like this battle between like good and evil, chaos and
order.
Oh, you're so smart. So what would you give the message on a 5-point scale?
I think I would probably go 4.5 because I think there is a bit that I do struggle with and I don't know that I can name each of it right now, but I think by the end I always feel good about it, but I will say 4.5 because I am not always 100% there.
Okay, the characters, all those like hefty characters we just talked about.
It's a 5. I think the characters in this are across the board, whether they are the most important character in the movie or a one-bit character who, you know, like an extra. I think everybody in this movie is incredible. So it's a 5 for me.
The visuals.
The photography in this movie is so good. It's another 5 for me.
And then lastly, the style.
Maybe I give this one a 4.5 instead of 5 only because I think that a lot of the style is meant to reflect other styles of film.
So for you, Matt, then this film is a 24 out of 5.
Even with my tiny critique, that didn't stop me from giving this film my highest rating yet, a 19 out of 25. Okay, I liked this one a lot too. I think we might be on some kind of streak here. Oh, what's that? Jonah Hex is next? Oh, never mind. In an alternate universe, mass vigilantes fought to protect civilians and even helped the US win World War II. Decades later, in 1985, mass vigilantes have been outlawed, leaving a group called the Watchmen purposeless. When one of the former Watchmen, the comedian, is murdered, it is up to Rorschach, the only one left who is still vigilanteing, to find out if he and his fellow Watchmen are being targeted. He warns his friend Daniel about the attack, and in turn, Daniel goes to warn Adrian Vett, while Rorschach goes to warn couple Dr. Manhattan and Silk Spectre 2, aka Laurie. Although Laurie is mildly concerned by the news, Dr. Manhattan does not take it seriously because he reveals he can no longer see the future because it is possibly being blocked by nuclear genocide. Meanwhile, Rorschach investigates an unknown person who attended the comedian's funeral, wondering how he knew him. He discovers he is ex-supervillain Edgar Jacobi and reveals to Rorschach that the comedian actually visited him before he died. Laurie breaks up with Dr. Manhattan because he really doesn't pay attention to her and leaves him for Daniel. Dr. Manhattan then goes on a talk show and is asked about the Cold War happening between the US and Russia and is accused of giving those close to him cancer. I thought the summaries were going to be the easy part when I started this project. Anyway, there is an assassination attempt on Adrian's life, and Rorschach recognizes a symbol on the assassin from something he saw at Edgar Jacobi's place, but when he goes back to investigate, Jacobi is dead and Rorschach is framed for his murder. He gets arrested. After having an intimate moment, Laurie and Daniel break Rorschach out of prison and discover that the person who is behind everything has been Adrian. Rorschach and Daniel travel to his lair in Antarctica while Laurie goes to Mars to convince Dr. Manhattan that humanity is worth saving. He only agrees when he learns that her biological father was the comedian, aka the man who tried to assault her mother back in the day. At the Antarctic lair, Adrian reveals his plans plans for wanting Earth to exile Dr. Manhattan by making them believe that he causes cancer and by rigging his devices to explode so that they can all come together after the death of millions instead of having a nuclear war, which will kill them all. While this plan makes sense to Dr. Manhattan, who hates Earth anyway and wants to make his own planet, Rorschach is the only one who threatens to expose Adrian's plans. He is then killed by Dr. Manhattan before he can do so. Daniel and Laurie leave to live in the newly destroyed New York City, while Dr. Manhattan leaves to make his own galaxy. A lot more happens in this movie, but I really just tried to sum up the main plot for you. First of all, I want to note that this is officially the longest movie I've watched so far, coming in at 2 hours and 43 minutes. And I did not complain about the length once. So it's possible. It can be done. I can enjoy movies over 2 hours long as they are good. This film was such a tonal shift from everything I had seen before. It was edgy, it was gritty, it was film noir-y, it was mature, it was graphic. One guy was just naked the whole time. Like literally the entire time. I was immediately invested in the characters, especially Rorschach, and I found Dr. Manhattan really intriguing. I think my two favorite moments in the film were when Dr. Manhattan took us through his entire past and explained to us how he became Dr. Manhattan, and the prison sequence with Rorschach. And then to have my two favorite characters have a standoff at the end that results in one of their deaths. Just kick a girl while she's down, why don't ya? The style reminded me a lot of the TV show The Boys, but now I know Watchmen did it first. My only two complaints are that I called the villain from the very beginning. I don't know if I've just watched a lot of these movies or I'm just a genius. And my other complaint is obviously about the fact that the main woman character in the film, Malin Ackerman's character Laurie, is completely dictated by the relationships she has with the men around her. She goes from being in a relationship with Dr. Manhattan to being in a relationship with Daniel to then learning who her true father was, and only then does Dr. Manhattan decide that she and humanity are worth saving. It's like giving when you reject a guy at a bar and you're just like, no, thank you. And then he responds with something like, what, you got a boyfriend or something? It's like, no, can I just be my own person? Anyway, 17 out of 25 for this one. Do I have to talk about this one? Okay, fine, let's just get it over with. Jonah Hex's family is murdered, and then he spends the whole movie seeking revenge on the man who did it. That's the whole thing. So I have a lot of problems with the fact that I did not care about the characters at all, didn't find an overall message. The visual artist must have graduated from the Catwoman School for Design, and I do not see myself watching this one again. Ones across the board, 5 out of 25. Jesus, can you tell I watched this one the week I got my period? I need you to know that I did in fact fall asleep on this movie. And I watched it in the middle of the day. A lot of years ago, a group of beings called the Guardians created an intergalactic police force known as the Green Lanterns to protect different sectors across the universe. Their main enemy is a being known as Parallax, who feeds off of fear and is the embodiment of fear itself. Therefore, the Green Lanterns must be fearless. After one of the Green Lanterns is attacked by Parallax and crash lands on Earth, he tells his ring, the amulets that give the Green Lanterns their powers, to find a worthy successor. The ring finds it in Hal Jordan, a cocky, unlikable, womanizing test pilot for the Air Force. Once he uses the ring, he is transported to the Green Lantern's home planet Oa and is taught how to use the ring and what his duties are as a Green Lantern. Sinestro, the leader of the Green Lantern, says that Hal is not fit to be a Green Lantern because he is full of fear, so Hal quits and returns home to Earth. Meanwhile, Senator Robert Hammond's son, Hector, is recruited to experiment on the body of the Green Lantern who died on Earth, but there were remnants of Parallax within his body and they attach themselves to Hector, causing him to have telepathic and telekinetic powers that cost him his sanity. Feeling rejected by his father, Hector tries to kill him at a fundraiser, but Hal is able to stop him with the powers of the ring. It isn't until a few moments later when Hal, Hector, and Hector's father are back at the research lab that Hector is successful in killing his father. While there, Hal is able to access Hector's brain and sees that Parallax is coming to destroy Earth. Hal returns to Oa to meet with the Guardians, who tell him that they have made a weapon to defeat Parallax, but Hal warns them that the weapon is too dangerous and that they should beat Parallax by staying true to who they are. In the end, Hal is able to beat Parallax, but not before he kills Hector and officially becomes a Green Lantern. No one makes fun of this movie more than Ryan Reynolds himself, and after seeing all of the bits he does about it in all of his other movies, I was truly expecting something terrible, but in an entertaining way. But unfortunately, it was just kind of bad in a boring way. Like I said, I fully fell asleep and had to rewatch the last hour of the film. The visuals are crazy, the style is non-existent, the only character I cared about was a talking fish, who I did not see enough of, by the way. And it felt like the only part of the film that they really cared about was the message, which I interpreted as the true meaning of being fearless is not being without fear, it's being afraid but being brave enough to do the right thing anyway. Oh, did I forget to mention Blake Lively? Good. Also, the Green Lantern's whole power is just pointing a ring and building random shit. They don't have to be particularly strong or cool or smart. They just have to be able to raise their arm, which I think is a pretty lame hero. I think it would have been more entertaining if the whole movie was just him interacting with the talking fish and giant warthog. Like, if the whole film were just these two trying to make Hal Jordan a better person, it still would have been bad, but at least it would have been entertaining. 8 out of 25. 8 years after the death of Harvey Dent, Bane, a rogue member of the League of Shadows, comes to Gotham City to finish what Ra's al Ghul started. How will he destroy the city? Thank you for asking. He wants to do it with a nuclear bomb. How does he want to build a bomb? Once again, I appreciate your concern. He wants to make it out of Bruce Wayne's fusion core reactor. Okay, I'm not gonna do the whole summary like this. Bane gains access to the fusion core reactor by teaming up with Wayne Enterprise employee John Daggett and promises him that he will become the CEO of the company if he helps him. Miranda Tate, a wealthy investor, also comes to town to convince Bruce to reinvest in the fusion core reactor for the clean energy industry. Meanwhile, Daggett hires Selina Kyle, a master jewel thief, to steal Bruce's fingerprints so that they can carry out their plan. Bruce, who hasn't been Batman for the past 8 years and has been hiding in his house all by himself, confronts Selina as to why she stole his fingerprints, and she warns him, "Honey, you've got a big storm coming." Bane and Daggett bankrupt Bruce, forcing him to sell Wayne Enterprises to someone else, so he picks Miranda Tate to protect the reactor. Realizing he's gonna have to be Batman again, Bruce reconnects with Mr. Fox and gets some new gadgets from him so he can fight Bane. Bane breaks his back and leaves him in an inescapable prison. While in the prison, Bruce learns of a child that Ra's al Ghul had while in the League of Shadows. Assuming that the child is Bane, Bruce comes to the conclusion that Bane must be avenging his father's death. After escaping the inescapable prison, Bruce returns to Gotham to stop Bane from blowing up the city. He threatens Bane to tell him where the detonator is, but is stabbed by Miranda Tate, who reveals herself to be Talia al Ghul, aka Ra's al Ghul's daughter. She rigs the reactor to blow and floods the containment facility it's in before Mr. Fox can override it. Bruce then uses his aircraft, the Bat, to fly the bomb over the ocean where it explodes without killing anyone. Batman is presumed dead, but a few months later, Alfred spots Bruce and Selina Kyle living together in Italy. Okay, a lot of other things happen in this one. I didn't even mention Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, who is revealed to be Robin and is even given access to the Batcave at the end of the film, almost like they were teasing a future Robin film. I wonder if we're ever gonna get that. Also, Gary Oldman's character, Jim Gordon, gets hurt pretty early on in the film, so he spends most of this one in a hospital bed. I think overall this movie is fine. It might even be good, but coming off of The Dark Knight, those are just some very big shoes to fill. My two biggest problems with this film are as follows. Number one, Bane's voice. Obviously. It's really not intimidating at all. It's foolish, really. I think it would have been a stronger choice if he just didn't talk at all. I actually think that the stronger iteration of Bane is actually in Batman and Robin when he just acts as someone's muscle, seen and not heard, as they say. My second problem is now that I've seen other iterations of Catwoman, this one just sucks for me. I mean, I like her whole eat the rich mentality, but I feel like the cool thing about Catwoman is her transformation from meek, awkward girl to strong, confident, woman. Halle Berry's is still the worst, don't get me wrong, but Selena Kyle just feels like such an afterthought in this movie. I don't know, it just didn't do it for me. Also, Alfred resigns in this movie, so he's gone halfway through. And I'm like, why would I want to watch a Batman movie without Alfred? All in all, I think the message is a pretty standard superhero one with a sprinkle of socialism. The characters are meh for me. The visuals and the style are fine. I don't really see myself watching this one again. 12.5 out of 25. Hi, it's day 2 of my period, and I can't explain it, but I feel like this film kicks off a new era for the DC universe. Let's talk about it. This is a modernized retelling of Superman's origin story. After the planet of Krypton is destroyed, General Zod wants to punish all of the bloodlines responsible for its destruction. Jor-El sends his newborn son Kal-El to live on Earth with a genetic codex implanted in him to preserve the Kryptonian race. Zod pledges to find this baby so that he can create his own race of enhanced Kryptonians. On Earth, Kal-El is raised by Jonathan and Martha, and they name him Clark Kent. Jonathan Kent, his father, advises him to keep his powers a secret, fearing that society will not accept him. So Clark lives a nomadic life, constantly changing jobs and names and trying to save people in secret as much as he can. Once Clark hears about an alien spaceship discovery in the Arctic, he explores it, hoping to find some information about his past. Once he gets there, he is greeted by his father in the form of a hologram who tells him to help the people of Earth. Lois Lane, a reporter for the Daily Planet, arrives to write a story on the discovery, and she follows Clark into the spacecraft. She is attacked by the ship's defense system, but is saved by Clark. Meanwhile, Zod breaks free from the Phantom Zone and arrives to Earth, demanding that he find the Kryptonian disguised as a human among them. He says that if they do not give up the identity of the super being, he will kill people. That's what he says. Lois Lane, being the only person who knows of Clark's true identity as Superman, is taken into custody with Clark now donning his Superman apparel. Superman fights Zod on behalf of the citizens of Earth and kills him. And in the end, he decides to take a job at the Daily Planet so that he can constantly stay informed of any danger and help people whenever he can. This movie takes itself so seriously. There's such a heavy atmosphere with this one, which I don't think is serving it at all. Superman's backstory is also presented to the audience in a series of flashbacks, which is certainly an interesting choice. It's a really weird interpretation of his origin story. I just feel like they were trying so hard to do something different. Between the writing, the editing, the effects, the visuals, they're all just trying really hard. Also, Lois Lane was so lame in this one. One of her first lines is something about having a dick measuring contest, and I'm just get out of here. Women don't talk like that to gain authority over a room full of men. Lois Lane is just so good at her job that she doesn't need to talk like that. The proof is in the pudding. I also think that part of the reason why this version of Lois Lane doesn't work is the casting. I love Amy Adams, don't get me wrong. She's a gem and a very good actor, but she does have this innate softness about her, which doesn't read very badass journalist to me. She just doesn't have the same spunk and fire that Margot Kidder has. You know, I actually just looked up the writers for this one, and one of them is Christopher Nolan, and he doesn't know how to write women for shit, so this is all starting to make sense. The characters fall a little flat for me. The visuals are crazy. General Zod looks like one of the kids from Spy Kids Game Over, and I don't think I'm going to rewatch this one. 9 out of 25. I guess this was just the year of superheroes fighting each other, huh? Following the aftermath of the fight between Superman and General Zod at the end of Man of Steel, some people are starting to believe that Superman might be doing more harm than good. One of those people is Bruce Wayne, who was in Metropolis at the time and saw the destruction firsthand. The US government also debates whether or not Superman should have any restrictions. Lex Luthor, the CEO of LexCorp, proposes that they should do some experiments on the destruction site and some of the chunks of kryptonite that have been discovered in the Indian Ocean. Bruce steals the kryptonite from Luthor, making his own weapons to take down Superman, and Diana Prince shows up because she has her own beef with Lex Luthor, saying that he has a picture of her that she really needs to get back. After Bruce steals Luthor's information, he finds out that he himself had been making his own team of metahumans, Diana included. But then Luthor breaks into the destruction site of the Kryptonian ship and learns everything he needs to know about Superman, including his true identity. So he resurrects General Zod's body using his own blood to create a monster that will be strong enough to kill Superman. Luthor also kidnaps Superman's mother, Martha, and tells him that in order to save her, he must kill the Batman. Superman tries to reason with Bruce, but Bruce initiates a fight. A few moments later, Superman reveals that he must save his mother, Martha, and Bruce, having lost his own mother, named Martha, agrees to help. Bruce goes off to save Martha, and Superman flies off to fight Lex. Superman, Batman, and Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman, work together to stop the creature, but they realize he can only be stopped with kryptonite. Superman stabs the monster with the kryptonite, but gets stabbed in return and dies. In the end, at Superman's funeral, Bruce Wayne promises Diana that he will find the other metahumans like them to protect Earth and honor Superman. The beginning of this film is just a flashback sequence reminding us of Batman's backstory, and oh my god, is that Jeffrey Dean Morgan? He's been in like 3 of these films. Okay, anyway, back to business. I've watched 2 Zack Snyder films now, and I think I know my exact problem with them. The biggest similarity between this one and Man of Steel is the fact that they both lack an energy that the film desperately needs. The literal and metaphorical tones are very muted. The dialogue is very meta. It almost sounds like people are talking in riddles. And like I said before, these films take themselves very seriously. It just sucks all of the fun out of it. I think the strongest stuff that happens in this film is the conflict between Superman and the US government. Even though it's very reminiscent of the plot of Captain America Civil War, I think it is a strong premise. And I don't mind the beef between Superman and Batman. I just think it's crazy that all it took for them to stop fighting was the fact that their moms had the same name. But like, whatever moves the plot along, I guess. And even though I did find Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor very interesting, at least he was making some obvious choices there, I couldn't really understand what he was saying some of the time, and I didn't even truly understand what he wanted. What I did not need in this film was the random inserts of characters like Wonder Woman, The Flash, Aquaman. I know that's like the MCU's whole thing, but at least when another character comes up in an MCU project, I feel like they have a clear purpose. They all just felt like really misplaced, and because I hadn't seen them in anything before or their own films, I was kind of like, why would I care? I guess if you're like a huge DC fan and you see a snippet of The Flash or whoever this guy is, you'll probably get excited, but for me, it just left me kind of confused. Also, all Lois Lane did in this film was get captured and saved, and I didn't care for that at all. I will say every time he saved her, it was hot. Don't look at me like that, it was! Who am I if but just a girl? Anyway, I've rambled on enough. 11.5 out of 25. Following the death of Superman, intelligence officer Amanda Waller convinces the US government to put together a team of supervillains to combat any possible threats. The team consists of Deadshot, Harley Quinn, El Diablo, Killer Croc, Captain Boomerang, and another guy who gets killed off rather quickly. Their first mission is to stop the Enchantress from taking over the world and killing mankind. The team is led by Colonel Rick Flag, whose girlfriend, Dr. June Moon, stupid name, is possessed by the Enchantress and can only be stopped with her heart, which is currently in possession of Waller. During a mission in which Waller needs the Enchantress to do some witchy things, she goes rogue and gains access to her heart and an idol containing the soul of her brother. She frees her brother and they create a weapon that will kill everyone in response to being trapped by Waller for so long. In the end, El Diablo sacrifices himself to kill the brother, and the rest of the team kill Enchantress and destroy her weapon, freeing Dr. June Moon for good. I think when you go into a movie that is notoriously hated by everyone, it's kind of hard for that not to cloud your opinion of it. At first, I was a little appreciative of the fact that this movie's tone and vibe felt kind of different compared to all the other very generic superhero movies I had watched. I feel like if the jokes weren't so outdated and this gross boy humor, it could have been funny. Emphasis on the could have. But then I started to follow the plot a little bit, and I was like, this could be better. And the characters were a little fun at first, but then I realized they really didn't flush any of them out. They seemingly want you to care about Deadshot and Harley the most. Deadshot's whole motivation for joining the team is to secure his daughter's safety, and they give you Harley's entire backstory with the Joker, and they seemingly try to make her a sex symbol. I mean, Harley's whole purpose in this movie is to make inappropriate jokes, be stared and gawked at, and lust after the Joker, who, by the way, I don't know why so many people were so mad about Jared Leto's Joker when he's barely in this movie. I'll give it to him. He does a pretty good Heath Ledger's Joker impression vocally, and I wouldn't mind this modernized, gangster-fied version of the Joker if it weren't for the grills. The grills are just bad. But it also made me realize he did all this weird shit for this role, like staying in character and sending all of the castmates really gross presents, and he has maybe 20 minutes of screen time. Also, there's 500 needle drops in this film. Not a lot worked for me. 9 out of 25. I can confidently say I liked this one. A very long time ago, Zeus created life on Earth and called it mankind. His son, Ares, who was jealous of the humans, influenced them to commit violent acts against each other to destroy his father's creation. In retaliation, Zeus created a species of women known as the Amazons to help coax the humans back into peace, but instead, they enslaved the Amazons. So the Amazons had to fight for their freedom, and they decided to live separately from the humans on a hidden island. There, a girl named Diana was raised by her mother, the queen of the Amazons, and trained to become a fierce warrior. One day, on her last day of training, a pilot crash lands just off the coast of their hidden island. Diana saves him and discovers that German soldiers are after him, and they begin to storm the beaches. The Amazons fight to protect their land, but they are no match for their guns. Diana's aunt sacrifices herself to save Diana, and she tells her she needs to take the God Killer, the sword given to them by Zeus, and go to the human world. The Amazons interrogate the pilot, and he reveals that his name is Stephen Trevor, and he is a spy for the Allied powers in World War I. He tells them he must return to the outside world because he must continue doing his job of receiving information about the Central Powers weapons. Upon hearing about the war, Diana is convinced that this is the work of Ares and that he has returned to Earth to finish what he started many years ago. Diana sneaks Steve off the island and travels with him to London, where he confronts the Supreme War Council and tells him about his discovery of a new gas the Central Power plans to use in their attacks. Being that they are so close to peace, the Council rejects Steve's proposals to attack the enemy labs, but he and Diana go anyway, forming a ragtag group of spies and con artists. Believing the German general to be Ares, Diana goes after him and kills him and expects the war to end, but it doesn't. Steve is unconvinced that Ares is even real, and he tries to explain to Diana that sometimes people are just bad and there's no rhyme or reason for it. That is until a member of the Supreme Council, Patrick Morgan, reveals himself to be Ares and tells Diana that she too is a child of Zeus and that together they can destroy the humans so that gods can live on Earth like they once did. Meanwhile, Steve flies off with the remaining mustard gas where it explodes in the sky, sacrificing himself. Feeling the love from Steve, Diana destroys Ares and vows to protect the humans forever. Overall, I thought that this film was a really refreshing watch compared to all of the other films that I had watched before this one. The story was structured well, the characters were good, there were good action sequences and visuals. I love the style from the 1910s. I thought that they seamlessly integrated Diana's story into like the real world. I don't know, maybe the movies I watched before this one were just so especially bad that this one just seems really good. Or maybe it's the fact that I just like when the women in the movie have more to do than be saved or be stared at by men. I also think that the message of this one is never let a man gaslight you. 17 out of 25. For time purposes, I will not be watching the Snyder Cut. Any extended editions are not required for this assignment. Why? Because I wrote the assignment, and what I say goes. So basically, Wonder Woman and Batman decide that they need to start a team to protect Earth now that Superman is gone. They reach out to Aquaman and Cyborg, who respectfully decline, and a young Barry Allen, who happily accepts. Their team up couldn't have come at a better time because this guy Steppenwolf has come to Earth to collect these 3 boxes called the Mother Boxes. And let me tell you something, this guy has some real mommy issues because he is obsessed with Mother. He needs these boxes to take over worlds and rebuild his home world. He steals the first one from the Amazons, he steals one from the ocean, which is how Aquaman gets involved, and the third one was at Star Labs and was used to create Cyborg. This gives Bruce an idea. If the box can create life, maybe they can use it to bring Superman back to life. After some debate, the team decides to risk it for the biscuit and bring him back to life. Once Superman is back amongst the land of the living, he has no idea who he is, so he starts attacking them and only stops when Lois Lane shows up. In the end, the team comes together to stop Steppenwolf and they save the day. I'm only vaguely familiar with the behind the scenes of this movie and what went down, and even then, I'm not sure what's a rumor and what's true. It says Zack Snyder is the director, but I'm pretty sure Joss Whedon hijacked it. Should I have done this research? Was this a part of the reading? All I have to say about this one really is that it just looks kind of bad. The characters are fine. I gave a little more points in that department just because I liked Barry Allen. I'm a sucker for a character with quippy one-liners and good comedic timing. It just hits for me every time. They made the women in this movie look overly done up. Their makeup was kind of bad. I don't know whose choice that was, but it was a poor one. At the end of the day, I'm pretty thankful that this one was one of the shorter ones. 11 out of 25. Okay, I have to confess something. I feel like I'm hitting a second wave with these films. I'm starting to get a little invested in them. I think maybe what they did in Batman vs. Superman worked. Fuck. Arthur Curry is a half-human, half-Atlantean born from his mother, the Queen of Atlantis, and his father, a lighthouse keeper. Because of her duties as Queen of Atlantis, Nicole Kidman has to go back to Atlantis when Arthur is very young. Through the years, a servant to the king, Vulko, aka Willem Dafoe, trains Arthur on land and sea to one day become the king of Atlantis. Although Arthur does have some competition because when his mother, Queen Atlana, returned to Atlantis, she was forced to bear a second child, his younger brother Orm, played by Patrick Wilson. In his adulthood, Arthur has now taken on the identity Aquaman for being a mysterious figure that defends and protects the sea. At the beginning of the film, he saves a submarine from being hijacked by pirates, and he leaves one of the pirates to watch his father die, making the evil guy even more evil, embarking on a quest for revenge against Aquaman. Then a neighborhood of Atlantis, the suburbs of Atlantis, if you will, is attacked by the same submarine, causing Orm to declare war on the surface world. Daughter of King Nerys, one of the rulers of the Seven Kingdoms, Mera, tries to convince Arthur to come back to Atlantis to stop the war and prevent millions of deaths. Arthur at first refuses, but after his father's house is attacked and his life is threatened, he agrees to help. He challenges his younger brother to a duel for the throne, gets his ass beat, and is rescued by Mera. Together, they journey to find the lost trident of King Atlan. While on their quest, they are attacked by the pirate from the submarine, now taking on the identity Manta and sporting some Atlantis armor. Aquaman defeats him but is seriously injured, so is once again rescued by Mera. Their journey takes them to the trench where they discover the lost sea at the center of Earth's core, and Nicole Kidman's character, aka Queen Atlana, who has been living there in solitude since her banishment. I feel like I haven't been explaining this one well. Also, King Orm was working with Manta and coordinated the attack on Atlantis because he just wanted an excuse to wage war. Moving on. It is there in the Lost Sea that Arthur finds the lost trident and fully embraces the identity of Aquaman. He stops the battle between Atlantis and the Seven Kingdoms, defeats his brother, and takes his rightful place at the throne as the king of Atlantis. Anyway, a couple of things are pretty distracting in this film. Number one, he does most of this movie in wet jeans. Is he insane? Two, the cast feels very bizarre to me. Everyone besides Jason Momoa and Amber Heard feel very out of place. I did not have Willem Dafoe riding a whale on my DCU bingo card, okay? Him, Nicole Kidman, Patrick Wilson, it all just feels like they went for bigger names rather than actors who would fit these roles better. Not that anyone did a bad job, I just thought that they were a weird choice. Also, I'm trying to decide if I even like the character of Aquaman. I can kind of understand why he has some resentment toward the Atlanteans because they do kill his mother because he exists. But this attitude that he has doesn't really go away at any point during the movie. Although he does become king at the end, he doesn't really feel like he went through any sort of development as a character. He's just this smug guy the whole time. I don't know. All I do know is that he wouldn't be anything without Princess Mera. She is the brains of the whole operation, and she has cool powers, so I'm glad she wasn't just a throwaway woman character like they tend to be in these movies. I think that they did the best they could with all of the underwater stuff, but the first battle between Arthur and Orm is kind of hard to follow because when they're both in their armor, they look kind of similar, so you can't really tell which one is getting hit when. Also, there's this crazy rom-com type montage in the second half of the film that feels very out of place. And the whole last battle takes place in the rain, and it's just very dark and hard to see. My biggest takeaway for this one was that there was just something very 2018 about this movie, and I can't explain it. 11.5 out of 25. Prologue. Somewhere in America, 1974. A boy is in the car with his brother and his father on their way to Christmas Day dinner. The boy then gets magically transported to a wizard's lair where he is asked to take over the wizard's powers. The boy is lured by the 7 deadly sins, revealing that he is not pure of heart and therefore unworthy to take over the wizard's powers. Decades later, the boy, now a man by the name of Thaddeus Savannah, returns to the wizard's lair to steal the orb that entraps the 7 deadly sins for revenge. In the present day, Billy Batson is a 14-year-old boy growing up in the foster care system after being abandoned by his mother. He is put in a group home where he meets Freddy, a physically impaired superhero fanatic. After standing up to Freddy's bullies in school, Billy is also transported to the wizard's lair where he is chosen to take the wizard's powers. He grabs hold of the wizard's staff and says the magic word Shazam and is transformed into a 30-year-old man and also a superhero. His new powers include shooting lightning from his fingers, super strength, super speed, being bulletproof, and as he later discovers, flying. Billy and Freddy mess around with Billy's new abilities, fighting minimal crime and showing off on social media. But Billy realizes that he has no longer a need for going to school now that he's a superhero. He ditches Freddy and basks in his newfound fame until Thaddeus Savannah shows up to take his powers. With Freddy's help, he is able to hold Thaddeus off, but he realizes he needs a bit more help. Billy and Freddy recruit their other foster siblings to become superheroes as well, taking hold of the staff and saying Shazam and defeating Thaddeus and the 7 deadly sins together. I thought this one was fun and funny. I wasn't sure about it in the first half, but it slowly started to win me over. Jack Dylan Glazer had a lot to do with that. Also, the heartfelt found family stuff was very sweet. I also thought that Shazam's powers looked really good. I didn't think that there was any bad CGI at all, really. What made me nervous in the beginning was the look of the wizard. He just looked really silly to me, like a bad Halloween costume where you just put together different pieces from different Halloween costumes from years past. I also just want to take this opportunity to ask, do we need the superhero movie prologue? I've watched a lot of superhero movies these past couple of weeks, usually more than one a day, and a lot of them give you a prologue in the beginning, typically about the villain, and I'm just starting to wonder, do we need them? Because my biggest problem with this movie is the fact that the whole litmus test for these young kids is, and by the way, why is this wizard only recruiting young kids? Have we done a background check on him? The whole test is to see if the kid is going to go for the staff or go for the orb containing the 7 deadly sins. But after the villain takes the orb, there is no test to see what the next kid is going to do. So this wizard is pretty desperate by the time he gets to Billy. And I understand that Billy did stick up for Freddy at school, but he also almost didn't. So I don't know if that truly makes him pure of heart, you know? I just think the movie could have been a little stronger or at least a little more dynamic if we didn't know the villain's whole story right out the gate. Like, what if the first time we met the wizard was through Billy, and he told him that he was the chosen one? He was the one who was most worthy to take on his powers, and he needed him to defeat this 7 deadly sins guy. Except when Billy goes to do so, the villain reveals to him that the wizard told him the same thing years ago, and that Billy is in fact not the chosen one, or special, or all that worthy. And then Billy could have discovered on his own that it doesn't matter what a wizard said, that he knows that he himself is special and worthy and chosen. This is the plot, and I knocked it out of the park, if you ask me. I think I just wrote a better movie. 15.5 out of 25 for this one. Finally, I have watched the movie that had white film bros going crazy in 2019. Arthur Fleck is a mentally ill party clown who aspires to be a stand-up comedian. He lives with and takes care of his mother and looks up to a late-night talk show host by the name of Murray Franklin. As he struggles to connect with the world around him and break into the comedy business, his actions get more and more extreme and he begins experimenting with a firearm. After being tormented on the subway, he uses it to kill 3 men and even brings it to a children's hospital during one of his gigs. It falls out of his pocket and he loses his job. This pushes him to try stand-up for the first time, but it does not go well. Meanwhile, his mother has a stroke and is hospitalized. While in the hospital, Arthur discovers that his stand-up is being featured on the Murray Franklin show, but not in a good way. This instigates his full descent into madness. After killing one of his fellow clowns, he is invited on the Murray Franklin show, where he goes in full clown makeup and asks to be called Joker. During his interview, Joker tells some very disturbing jokes, goes off on a tangent about how people are not nice anymore, and kills Murray Franklin. After he instigates a riot in the street and is later institutionalized. I feel like this movie was just vibes, and the vibes were good. Well, actually, they weren't good. They were bad vibes executed well. It was a well-done movie. The visuals and makeup were really good. It wasn't exactly action-y or very exciting, but it was thoughtful and well acted. It was really Arthur's final monologue at the end that really sold the message of the film to me. He talks about feeling invisible and how there's a lack of empathy in the world. He compares the lives of rich people like Thomas Wayne to the rest of the citizens of Gotham City, and it unfortunately really reflects the world we live in today. The only character to really care about in the film is Arthur Fleck, and Joaquin Phoenix does a really good job of getting you to care about him. It's also crazy. I feel like they reverse engineered Heath Ledger's Joker and made this origin story. That might not exactly be how the movie came to be, but it really felt like they took a lot of pointers from him. It was a well-done film. It won Oscars. I guess I'm officially a film bro now. 19 out of 25. Sometime after the events of Suicide Squad, Joker and Harley Quinn have broken up, which means it's pretty much open season on Harley now that she no longer has Joker's protection in Gotham City. Along with the police and several other people, supervillain Roman Sionis especially wants her dead. Harley convinces Roman not to kill her because she's starting a new life as a mercenary and promises him that she can get back the diamond he stole from a mobster family he slaughtered years ago. The diamond was stolen by young pickpocketer Cassandra Cain. Cassandra, who is already in jail for stealing other things, is freed by Harley, who asks her for the diamond. Cassandra explains to Harley that she cannot give her the diamond because she swallowed it. Harley gives Cassandra a lot of laxatives and waits for her to have to use the bathroom. Meanwhile, not believing that Harley is actually going to be able to get the diamond, Roman sends his singer and new driver, Black Canary, and his crazed henchman, Zaz, to go get Cassandra. Also, a mysterious woman is killing people with a crossbow. Also, police detective Renee Montoya is trying to build a case against Roman Sionis, but is fired from her job for doing things out of line. Feeling like too many people are after her, Harley needs to guarantee her safety, which Roman does if she hands over Cassandra. Even though Harley knows that that's a death sentence for Cassandra, she obliges, and they arrange to meet. They arrange their meeting at an abandoned amusement park. Detective Montoya gets there first, planning to apprehend Harley, but she's drunk, so Harley easily overpowers her and pushes her out a window. Black Canary and Zaz arrive next. Black Canary, still trying to figure out a way to save Cassandra, is almost overpowered by Zaz, who figures out that she has been feeding information about Roman to the cops. He wants to cut the diamond out of Cassandra's stomach, but before he can do so, he is killed by the crossbow killer, who reveals herself to be Helena Bertinelli, aka the only surviving member of the mobster family that Roman had slaughtered years ago. She now goes by Huntress. Detective Montoya, Black Canary, the Huntress, and Harley Quinn all fight Roman's goons, but are eventually overpowered, and Roman is able to kidnap Cassandra. Harley follows them to a pier where Cassandra kills Roman with a grenade that she stole. In the end, Harley makes Cassandra her apprentice for her mercenary business, and Black Canary, the Huntress, and Montoya all team up to make a crime-fighting trio, the Birds of Prey. Okay, I'm going to start with my teeny tiny little critique, and then I'm going to tell you everything that I love about this movie. In the beginning, there's a lot of voiceover. I understand that's the storytelling style they chose, but between the backstory and the introductions to who everyone is, I started to wonder to myself, is this voiceover tactic getting a little old? That being said, I really liked how the story was actually structured. I found it really refreshing how they would go back and rewind during certain points of the movie and kind of explain how each character was interconnected. I also loved the opening interrogation scene where the story kept cutting back and forth from past to present. The amount of color in this movie is fun. The costumes are amazing. I love the whole action sequence at the amusement park. The characters are complex and lively and funny. This is about the 5th time I've seen this movie, so the rewatchability is there. And the entire message of this one is that your identity does not need to be tied to a man. All of the women in this movie are trying to break free from the men who are holding them back, and I think that's really beautiful. Also, a girl Folie has a tampon in her nose to stop a nosebleed, and if that's not girlhood, I don't know what is. I'm happy to say that I gave this one my highest score of them all, a 24 out of 25. I know this movie came out in 2020, but I feel like 2019 was the year Hollywood decided that maybe they should start telling women-led stories, and it just propelled from there. Birds of Prey, Midsommar, Little Women, Us, Captain Marvel, Booksmart, Hustlers, Dora and the Lost City of Gold. Okay, maybe not that last one, but I truly feel like 2019 was the year the industry went, you know, women might just be people too. Diana Prince is living amongst humanity in the year 1984 and works at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. There, she meets new hire Barbara Minerva, who is very smart but lacks confidence. Together, they are asked to identify a series of artifacts apprehended by the FBI. Believing that most of them are fakes, they identify one of them to be the Dreamstone, which has the ability to grant wishes. Barbara wishes to be more like Diana, which not only gives her Diana's confidence, but all of her Wonder Woman abilities as well. Because of Diana's subconscious yearning to have Steve back in her life, he comes back in the form of another man. Meanwhile, Max Lorenzano is on a quest to create an oil business that will make him a rich man. After becoming a partner of the Smithsonian and getting a tour by Barbara, who is smitten by him, she shows him the Dreamstone, which he steals and then wishes to become so that he can grant other wishes. With his new powers, he grants the wish of an Egyptian oil salesman in exchange for access to the oil supply, which he makes a successful business out of. Diane and Steve try to track Max down and learn that the Dreamstone was created by the God of Mischief, aka the Duke of Deception, and therefore any wish that is made comes with a price. The stone must be destroyed, which would kill Max, or all of the wishes must be renounced. Barbara pleads with Diana to find another way to stop Max without reversing any of the wishes, and Diana, who just got Steve back in her life, agrees. Diana tries to go after Max, but Barbara intervenes, protecting him at all costs. And because of her wish, Diana is much weaker and therefore not powerful enough to take on Max or Barbara. Steve encourages Diana to give him up so that she can save the world. Meanwhile, Max goes to the President of the United States, who wishes for more nukes closer to the US enemies, which incites a nuclear war. Then Max goes on live TV, granting the wishes of everyone in the world, causing chaos. Diana, now with her Wonder Woman powers fully intact, arrives to stop him, but she first has to get through Barbara, who has now wished to become an apex predator, turning her into a cheetah. Diana is able to overpower her and gains access to the broadcast, convincing the people of the world to renounce their wishes so that they can weaken Max. Max, seeing that what he has done is wrong, runs to his son, who calls out to him in fear and promises to be a better dad. I would say overall this movie is fine. My biggest problem with it are the visuals and the action sequences. They look bad and weird. She pretty much uses her lasso in every action sequence and it doesn't look that good. It's too yellow, too shiny, and looks really out of place. But every action sequence between Wonder Woman and Barbara is basically just her getting thrown into shit and lying there. And then their final battle is them just being trapeze artists and swinging into each other. I'm like, what happened to good old hand-to-hand combat? Also, she says her entire final monologue up against a wall because she had just gotten flung there. Also, did we need another goodbye with Steve in this one? I did cry when they were saying goodbye. I will not lie to you. I only lied to you in the beginning when I said I had never watched a DC movie, but I have not lied since, I swear. I mean, I guess it was cool to have Chris Pine back, but he was holding her back the entire time. And maybe that was the point? Don't let a man hold you back? Is that the message? Hey guys, it's me editing. I feel like I was a little too clouded by Birds of Prey when I talked about this movie. I actually don't think that the message is don't let a man hold you back, but rather don't let your grief hold you back. And even if you've said goodbye to loved ones or important people in your life, that doesn't mean that your life shouldn't continue and that they wouldn't want you to still be happy without them. But I do still question their execution with this message because I feel like they had Diana in too good of a place at the start of this movie. When we meet her, she has this really nice job. Everyone seemingly loves her. Barbara is envious of her. She seems to have moved on from saying goodbye to Steve Trevor. And even when she gets introduced to the Dreamstone and realizes that it's a real artifact, she doesn't immediately jump on the opportunity to wish him back into her life. I feel like if there was this longing for Steve out the gate so that it didn't just feel like we're making a Wonder Woman movie, we gotta get Chris Pine back or else who's gonna see this movie without Chris Pine in it, you know? Because then I feel like their goodbye would just be a little more impactful and you'll feel that Diana has learned a lesson, and that is the fact that she shouldn't have held on to her grief and her loss for Steve, and that even though he will always be in her heart, that she can continue to be Wonder Woman and, you know, live her life without him. Does that make sense? Did I explain this well? Okay. I will say I do appreciate the fact that Kristen Wiig's transformation into confidence had very little to do with what she looked like. I understand that she started dressing a little bit better and she took off her glasses at some point like they all do. But the attitude people had towards her changed way before she put on heels. I felt like it was saying the confidence you have has very little to do with what you look like and more to do with how you feel, which I appreciated. All in all, this one got a 13 out of 25. I love James Gunn. Amanda Waller is back and better than ever. Her Task Force X program is in full swing, and the latest mission is shutting down Project Starfish, operating out of a Nazi-era laboratory in a South American island. The first team consists of Captain Boomerang from the first Suicide Squad, Harley Quinn, who is back in prison for having road rage in a bank, Pete Davidson, a weasel, and a few other characters who are pretty much taken out right out the gate, except for Harley Quinn and Colonel Rick Flag. Flag is found by rebel soldiers living on the island, and Harley is taken by the island's government. The second team, consisting of Bloodsport, Ratcatcher 2, Peacemaker, King Shark, and Polka Dot Man, safely make their way through the jungle to the laboratory. They come across Flag and the rebel soldiers, but kill them all, thinking that they're the enemy. Meanwhile, Harley is taken to the Major General, who has just recently taken power over the island, and he reveals that he is a big admirer of her. He asks her to marry him, but once he reveals his plans with Project Starfish, Harley shoots him dead, saying that she's not going to be with someone who tortures children. She is imprisoned and tortured, but escapes and takes the javelin from her ex-teammate, Javelin. Outside, she runs into the rest of the team, who are about to embark on a mission to rescue her, with Thinker, the lead scientist of Project Starfish. They infiltrate the laboratory, and Ratcatcher and Flag discover that Project Starfish is a giant alien starfish called Starro the Conqueror, who creates smaller versions of itself to use as mind control devices to enslave the human race. Starro was an alien brought to Earth by the US government. Flag, feeling betrayed by his country, intends to release the records to the press to expose the US's involvement. Peacekeeper, who is told specifically by Amanda Waller to not let that happen, kills Flag before he can do so and threatens to kill Ratcatcher as well. Bloodsport shoots and kills Peacekeeper before he can. With the lab destroyed and Starro on the loose terrorizing the citizens of the island, Waller calls the team back, saying that their job is done. But Ratcatcher 2 convinces the team to disobey orders and defeat Starro. Back at the office, Waller's employees stop her from detonating any of the bombs in their heads so that they can save the day. Polka Dot Man is squished, Bloodsport runs out of weapons, leaving it to Ratcatcher to assemble all the rats in the city to take Starro down. Harley helps deliver the final blow using Javelin's javelin, and the team saves the day. Also, the Weasel is alive. Also, in a post-credit scene, Peacemaker is found alive. I feel like a couple times during that summary, I accidentally called him Peacekeeper.
Peacekeeper.
And if so, I apologize, but I'm not going to go back and say all that again. He's my least favorite character anyway. Who cares? Anyway, back to business. Just like Matt is the biggest Batman fan of all time, I know the biggest Margot Robbie fan of all time as well. And it would feel like a crime to talk about this franchise, and especially this movie, without her. So without further ado, here is a brief conversation with me and one Carly Perkins. Hey Carly, thanks for chatting with me. We can't talk about this version without going back to talk about the old version. It's kind of like Taylor's version and then like the OG version, and then it's like the Suicide Squad James Gunn's version in parentheses. Mm-hmm. But I think unfortunately we do have to start with the original Suicide Squad, which I know you watched recently. So when was the first time you saw this movie? When it came out?
Yes, and the thing is, I liked this movie a lot the first time it came out. So obviously I used to have no taste. I liked it a lot, and I'm sure a lot of that was love of my life, Margot Robbie. I'm wearing a Margot Robbie shirt with all her face in it. It was a little hard for me not to love my favorite actress playing my favorite fictional character ever. So, like, I made a lot of excuses for it.
I don't think any of us had taste, really, in 2016. So you can't fault yourself. I also think that from just, like, I know that I was not the feminist that I am today back in 2016. So had I seen this movie back in that time, I probably also would have watched it and been like, oh, like, that was funny and weird and like, whatever, you know? I thought that whole sequence of her getting away on the helicopter with him just to be found like a scene later in the street, like, oh, hey guys, like, I'm back now. I was just like, this is just so weirdly written. It's not even like a bad take on a woman. It's just a bad take on a character.
And like, there's so many lines that I'm like, that's not a Harley line. She wouldn't say that. Like, it's very out of character for her.
Yeah.
I will say Margot does so well with the little she's given. Like she feels like Harley even despite the very weak writing. And I will say, when I first watched this movie, her licking the bars in the prison, it did things to me. As a little college age teen, I was just like, oh my God, she can do that?
Yeah, it was just a really poorly written film for me. One of the words that I used to describe this one was corny. It was just trying too hard to make this cool group of villains and like, we're gonna say and do nasty shit together. Do you want to know who my favorite character is in this movie? In both of these movies? Colonel Rick Flag. Were you just introduced to like the DC stuff like before Marvel came into your life, or were they introduced to you at the same time but you just gravitated more towards the DC stuff? Like, what made you a DC girl?
So did you ever watch Arrow, The Flash, like the TV shows on the CW?
I watched The Flash.
Yeah, so I got into DC through that, and it wasn't like that wasn't the only reason. Like it was more just the more I learned about the DC characters, the more I was like, oh, DC has so many cooler female characters than Marvel does.
Mm.
Like DC has Wonder Woman, they have Catwoman, they have Harley, they have Poison Ivy, and a lot of these are villains, but I don't care.
Speaking of strong female characters, I think that it's appropriate now that we start talking about Birds of Prey. It's such a fun like celebration of girlhood in just like kind of a violent way, which is fine.
Like the action is so Harley. Like in the first Suicide Squad, it's just action. It's just like regular cookie cutter action. But
Mhm.
like the action in this, like with all the colors and the jail and like that scene in the jail when it's like the sprinklers are going off and she's fighting and it's so Harley style. I love it. And I love how it's not just female centered. It's like all about female friendships and like women lifting each other up.
I also just like love how messy and kind of complicated all of the women are. Like I love how they're not perfect. Like they don't try to be like a perfect example of like a badass woman or a well put together woman or any sort of trope that's like really one dimensional. So let's move on now to Margot's last feature in the DC universe, which is the Suicide Squad from the year 2020. Immediately right off the bat, like this one had me giggling. It was the whole conversation in the plane where Pete Davidson is like, "Is this a dog?" And everyone's like, "You think that's a dog?" Yeah, it immediately had me giggling. I was like, see, this is the humor that I feel like the first one needed if they were gonna lean into a more comedy side of things and not just go like dark supervillain movie.
Well, one thing I love about the opening is he really takes the Suicide Squad to like exactly what it should be. Like, because you expect, okay, one or two people are gonna die pretty early on, just to kind of hit home that anyone can die. But no, he literally just kills essentially almost the entire team. And I do have to talk about Weasel. I love Weasel. I think Weasel might be my favorite. Just, I love creepy little guys, and he's such a creepy little guy.
James Gunn has a really unique superpower where he is just able to make me care deeply about CGI animals and creatures. Immediately was like, I'm obsessed with Weasel. Was sad to see him go, happy to see him live. I love the little rat Sebastian. You're gonna put a CGI rat in front of me, name him Sebastian, and put him in a little outfit and expect me not to care about him? Even in the beginning when all of the team has died and now we're doing like the opening credits and he's playing a song that's literally saying like people who've died. And I'm like
I'm not a big soundtrack person, but like whenever I'm watching a James Gunn movie, I'm aware of how good the soundtrack is. Like, because it like elevates the film. It's not just like putting a really good song in. It's like finding the literal perfect song for this moment, putting it in, and elevating the whole film because of it. Like, he's just so good at it. I'm obsessed with the title cards too. Like, they're so good. Like how they use the natural environment to write them. I'm just like, I didn't realize that was something I loved till like James Gunn did it in this.
My favorite one was when we got to Jotunheim and it was spelled out like in the debris like around the building, and then you like kind of the camera angle changed a little bit and then you saw that it was just like a mishmash of stuff. Like it wasn't just, it wasn't there's just there like, oh, it happened to spell out Jotunheim. It was just like, oh no, like this is like the real environment. And then also like to show the title card of the film, it was like really cool how they had it in the back. And then as like the characters like got up, like I think they were like getting up from like being in the sand, you saw their silhouettes appear within the title card. And I was like, that is hot. Like that's hot. That's a hot decision. I'm getting turned on by this title card.
One thing that knocks on this film a little bit for me is there's not enough Harley for my taste. But
okay, fair enough.
But also it doesn't knock that hard because the plot they give her is just so fun and so Harley that I kind of can't hate it as much as I wish she was with the team a little bit more. I love how it's like she's growing, she's figuring out she has horrible taste in men. They make you feel for her. Like she doesn't seem so crazy when you're like when you think about the facts and like the emotion of it, which is I just love that choice. Like it shows that James Gunn gets Harley Quinn.
What I will say about her arc throughout this film is that it goes from her to being like courted to be this like princess type like queen, and at first she's like, oh heck yeah, this rocks, gets laid, and then realizes, oh, this is actually a bad guy, and I gotta get rid of him.
Despite the chaos and the mess, like she does care about people. Like she when she sees her friends going to save them, she's like, oh, okay, I'll go help. Or like when they rescue her, she's like, well, I can go back inside and you can still do it. Like James Gunn got her heart right, and like that's the most important thing to me. Well, also the chaos and the mess.
I also love like even the line before that where she's like, you guys came to rescue me? Like she's just like so touched, and I love that little moment.
I do love at the end when Rick Flag is dying and he's like just says peacemaker. What a fucking joke. God, that's such a cool last line. Like that is the sickest burn.
When I got to the post-credit scene of this one and they said that they found someone in the rubble and they couldn't believe that his heart was still beating, I was like, Colonel Rick Flag? Do you want to know who my favorite character is in this movie?
Who?
In both of these movies? Colonel Rick Flag. Is that you? Could it be that you're not dead? And then it was fucking Peacekeeper. I don't care about this guy. I want Rick Flag back. I put Matt and Chad on the spot when I did this with them, and so I'm gonna have to put you on the spot a little bit as well. The message of this one,
I'll give it a 4.
the characters,
5.
the visuals,
I think I gotta do 5.
the style.
5.
And then how likely are you to rewatch this movie, Carly?
5.
Okay. Yep, a 24 out of 25 from Carly.
The action is good, the gore is good, the fact that it all leads up to fighting a giant starfish, it all works for me. I hope with James Gunn taking over the DC universe, we get a lot more movies like this one. 23.5 out of 25. Okay, this is officially the longest watch, coming in at 2 hours and 56 minutes. Did I think it was too long? No. No, I did not. For the past 2 years, Bruce Wayne has been trying his best at keeping Gotham safe as the Batman, but a new threat emerges going after the most important figures in the city. On Halloween night, he claims his first victim, the mayor, and leaves a riddle for Batman. Batman and Lieutenant Gordon also realize the mayor's thumb is missing. They find it in the front seat of the mayor's car along with a thumb drive. On it are pictures of the mayor with a woman named Annika at a nightclub owned by Oswald Cobblepot. The following night, the madman also murders the police commissioner, calling himself the Riddler. After meeting Selina Kyle, Annika's roommate, at the nightclub confronting Oswald, Batman follows her and discovers that she too has a masked identity, Catwoman. He follows her back to the mayor's apartment where she's trying to steal back Annika's passport. Batman suggests that they confront Annika together, but by the time they get back to Catwoman's apartment, she's missing. At the mayor's funeral, District Attorney Gil Coulson literally crashes it, wearing a collar bomb put on him by the Riddler. He and Batman answer 3 riddles together, but Coulson refuses to answer the last one and give up the name of the mobster who's been controlling most of the police officers in Gotham. Batman and Gordon suspect that Oswald is behind all of this and follow him to a drug deal. There, Selina Kyle gets in the way and intends to rob them of their cash, but instead finds the body of her friend, Annika. After pinning down Oswald, Batman discovers that he is not the informant for the police and that Bruce Wayne is the Riddler's next target. A letter with a bomb in it is sent to Wayne Manor, which Alfred is seriously injured by after he opens it and it detonates. The Riddler then leaks information about Bruce's family, which has him turning to mob boss Carmine Falcone for answers. At the nightclub, Falcone confesses that Thomas Wayne once came to him and asked him to take care of a reporter who was threatening to release stories about Martha Wayne's history with mental illness. Bruce asks Alfred about this, and he confesses that Thomas only intended for the reporter to be threatened, but instead Falcone had him killed. Thomas told Falcone that he was going to go to the police about what he'd done, but Falcone had him and his wife Martha murdered before they could do so. Selina reveals to Bruce that Falcone is in fact her father, and she believes he should pay for what he did to Annika. Bruce tries to stop her, explaining that if they kill Falcone, they'll never find out who the Riddler is. Batman and Gordon arrest Falcone, but once they take him outside, the Riddler shoots him with a sniper. They find the Riddler, a guy named Edward Nashton, and he is taken to Arkham State Hospital. There, Batman questions him, and he reveals that he has more plans for the city. Back at the Riddler's lair, Batman watches a video the Riddler posted of him online, encouraging people like him to assassinate the new mayor. Batman also discovers that the Riddler has a series of car bombs rigged to detonate and explode right by the city's seawall, causing the city to flood. Batman and Catwoman fight the Riddler lookalikes, and Batman leads the people out of the flooding arena and saves what's left of the city. Back in Arkham, the Riddler befriends his neighbor and shares a laugh with him. I feel like the best way to describe this one is a superhero drama. It's not super actiony, it's pretty mellow, it's a lot darker than all of the other Batman movies for sure, and at times kind of spooky. Definitely some horror elements in there for sure, considering the Riddler was making saw traps the whole movie. He took some notes from Jigsaw. This film is very plot heavy, so the characters kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit. For instance, Robert Pattinson has to spend so much time being Batman that you don't really get to know Bruce Wayne at all. All we really know about this Bruce Wayne is that he seems to be a deeply depressed loner, like a version of Bruce Wayne that didn't become a spoiled womanizer, but instead an awkward man with a thirst for vengeance. Awkward man with a thirst for vengeance, that's a recipe for disaster. That sounds like an incel. But I assure you, this Bruce Wayne is not. He's somehow pulling it off. This iteration of Catwoman is very Anne Hathaway-esque, but I think it works a little better for me because her plot and circumstances are directly tied to Batman rather than being like totally separate. And Jeffrey Wright is a really good Jim Gordon. I just wish he had more to do apart from just being with Batman. I feel like Gary Oldman's Jim Gordon wasn't afraid to do more things on his own. It feels like this version of Jim Gordon is really dependent on the Batman. That being said, there are some really amazing shots in this movie. I would definitely save this one to watch on a rainy day. It is just 3 hours, so make sure you clear your schedule. 19 out of 25. I feel like this movie gave me a headache. Also, I'm going to do my best with all of the pronunciations of people, places, and things. In the ancient city of Kondak, a tyrannical king created a weapon called the Crown of Sabak to achieve great power. In order to power the crown, he orders his people to mine a rare element called Eternium. A young boy amongst the miners trusts that the king is going to do good with his power, but instead he kills his own people. So the boy leads a revolt, steals back the Eternium, and is summoned by the Council of Wizards and is transformed into Teth Adam, Kondak's champion and savior. As Teth Adam, he defeats the evil king, except none of this is true. Just you wait. 5,000 years later, in present day, Kondak is being colonized as fuck and is currently under military reign. So an archaeologist named Adriana searches for the Crown of Sabak, finds it, and unleashes Teth Adam, whose power is far stronger than anything anyone ever imagined. His awakening gets the attention of Amanda Waller, who sends the Justice Society to collect him for Task Force X. The team consists of Hawkman, Kent Nelson, Atom Buster, and Cyclone. After a series of fighting, Adriana finally gets Adam alone and exposes the truth about his past. He in fact did not defeat the evil king, but instead gained the powers from the wizards and then used them to enact his revenge, making him Not a great guy. Meanwhile, Ishmael, one of the guys who helped Adriana with the initial search of the crown, kidnaps her son Amon and threatens to kill him if Adriana does not give him the crown. Adriana does give him the crown, but Adam defeats him before he is able to use it. While alone with Hawkman, Adam reveals his true past. It was not actually him who was chosen to be Kahndaq's champion, but his son. His son gave up the powers of Teth Adam to save his father and then died shortly after. His son dreamed of a better world, and now he feels unworthy to harness the power of Adam. He surrenders himself to Hawkman, releases his powers, and then is imprisoned in a secret base with Task Force X. Ishmael's corpse is then resurrected, and he is able to take on the full powers of the crown, inhabiting demon-like abilities. The Justice Society does their best to defeat him, but they know they cannot do it without Adam. Adam breaks free from his cell at Task Force X and arrives just in time to help the Justice Society, but not before Ishmael kills Kent Nelson. He and the Justice Society leave things on good terms, and Adam officially becomes the protector of Kahndaq. In a post-credit scene, Amanda Waller warns Adam to stay in his lane or else she will send powerful people after him. He says, "Bring it on," and then Superman shows up. And this is when I realized that none of these post-credit scenes actually mean anything because James Gunn just wiped the DC slate clean. So all of the movies I have left are what's gonna happen. Why did I do this again? Black Adam, the movie that left me questioning everything. Okay, this whole movie is just action sequences, exposition, more action sequences, and more exposition. The whole prologue they give us in the beginning about Adam's backstory could have just been the whole movie. I feel like it was a really interesting story, and I wish it wasn't force-fed to me in the span of like 90 seconds. I feel like the family and the backstory of the city were the strongest parts. I really did not care about any member of the Justice Society. That name is as lame as the concept. They could not force the potential romance between Adam Buster and Cyclone any harder if they tried. The visuals were done well, but just presented in a really weird way, and I do not see myself watching this one again. Oh, but the message being don't colonize people? I can get behind that. 10.5 out of 25. This movie came out the year I was working in New York, and it was all over Times Square, and I would look up at the billboards and think, wow, that looks terrible. So let's talk about it. Long before the wizard was preying on children and looking for a successor, he and the other wizards created a barrier between the god world and the human world using the power of Atlas, encapsulating the god world in a dome and rendering it powerless. When the wizard's staff was broken in the last film to prevent the evil guy from getting it, the dome around the god world was broken, allowing the daughters of Atlas to escape and enact their plan for revenge. They steal it and force the wizard to fix it, going after Billy and siblings, stealing their powers from them in their search for the seed for the Tree of Life, which is their life source in the God realm. They also encase Philadelphia in a dome just like the wizards once did to them. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Freddy, he meets one of the daughters, Anthea, posing as a new girl in school and begins to crush on her. While hanging out after school one day, her two older sisters arrive. Hespera and Calypso take Freddy's powers from him and kidnap him. The rest of the siblings research the Daughters of Atlas and figure out what they're after, so they propose a trade. The seed for the Tree of Life in exchange for Freddy and the wizard staff. They reject their trade and fight instead. The siblings are able to take Hespera captive, but she escapes from her cell in their lair and steals the seed and leaves. As she's leaving, Anthea helps Freddy and the wizard escape from the God realm. Billy shows up to save them, and Freddy is able to get his powers back from the staff. Instead of planting the seed in the God realm like they planned, Calypso plants it in the earth to destroy it. The seed takes root and starts to grow, unleashing monsters that start attacking people. Also, Calypso summons the dragon Ladon, who protects the Tree of Life. After Calypso betrays both of her sisters, Billy, the only sibling left with powers, convinces Hespera to shrink the dome so it only surrounds Calypso, the dragon, and the Tree of Life. While in the dome, he gains ownership of the staff and shoots lightning so it ricochets off of the dome. With the staff fully charged, he is able to use it against Calypso and the dragon, blowing them up and destroying the tree, but killing himself in the process. As his family is burying him, Wonder Woman shows up, the last of the gods, and she is able to resurrect the staff, bring life back to the god realm, and resurrect Billy. Back at home, the wizard tells them that he's going to spend some time on Earth for a little while, and he reveals Billy's superhero name to him: Shazam. In a post-credit scene, Amanda Waller sends her employees to recruit Billy for the Justice Society. The only thing I could think about this entire movie was when the reporter asked Rachel Zegler why she was a part of it, and she responded with, "I needed a job," which is just so real. It's clear to me that the only people who are hating on her for that have no idea what it takes to be a working actor, because you need to get work when and where you can. Me personally, I'd act for a sandwich. Anyway, I know that this movie is about a bunch of kids becoming superheroes, but I feel like they just made them especially dumb in this one. Especially Billy, who's apparently going to be 18 soon, but is for some reason still acting like a 14-year-old boy. Or at least that's how Zachary Levi's playing him. It's clear in this one that he's the only one out of his siblings that's taking being a superhero seriously, so you'd think he'd be a little better at it, or want to be better at it. The whole time, he's pretty chill about the fact that he has no idea what he's doing. And so many dumb things happen in this movie that make little to no sense. Like when they trap Helen Mirren and no one watches her to make sure that she can't escape. Or when Freddy and Anthea are about to be eaten by the dragon and he hits her with an Uno reverse and says a line to her that she said to him earlier in the film, which is something along the lines of, "The strongest thing about you is you." And then they just sit there and they scream at it like that was gonna do anything to stop the man-eating dragon coming at you. Also, this movie just became a giant ad for Skittles at the end. Like, what in the product placement? I'm also like, what were Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu doing here? It was the same feeling I got when I saw Willem Dafoe and Nicole Kidman in Aquaman. It was jarring. It just felt like the people who made this movie were like, let's just hit every stereotypical superhero movie beat we can. 11 out of 25. I think the writers saw Spider-Man No Way Home and said, let's do that. After discovering he can travel faster than the speed of light and travel through time, Barry Allen tries going back in time to stop his mother's murder and to stop his father from being wrongfully convicted for her murder. In his new past, he meets his parents and his 18-year-old self, putting his future in danger. Realizing he traveled back in time to the day he got his powers, he takes past Barry to the place where he got them. Afraid of being struck by lightning, past Barry shoves future Barry in front of him at the last second, and the strike shoots through both of them. Past Barry gains powers, but future Barry is stripped of his. Now that he has no way of getting back to his timeline, future Barry must depend on past Barry for help. Not only that, but Zod is invading Earth way sooner than he was supposed to. Together, they search for the other members of the Justice League, but Barry realizes that whatever he did caused the metahumans to never exist. The only member they have access to is Batman. They travel to Wayne Manor where they meet Bruce Wayne, but it is not the Bruce Wayne that Barry knew. It's Michael Keaton. At first, Bruce refuses to help, but the Barrys go to the Batcave anyway and search for Superman. When they find out that Superman is being held at a military facility in Russia, they go there to free him, but they find out that it is not in fact Superman being held there, but Supergirl. She tells them that when Krypton was destroyed, she was supposed to get her and her infant cousin here safely, but their ship was destroyed and Kal-El never made it. Before going toe-to-toe with Zod, Batman strikes future Barry with lightning, giving him his powers back. With the help of Batman and Supergirl, the Barrys go after Zod, but Batman and Supergirl are killed in battle, so the Barrys go back in time to try and save them. After a second attempt, future Barry realizes that there is no saving them, and that them dying in battle is a canon event. Past Barry, not comprehending this, continues to go back in time to save them, but he begins to break the space-time continuum. A mysterious figure shows up, revealing that he too has been trying to go back in time to fix his mistakes, but has been indirectly destroying other worlds. This new version of Barry is the past Barry that future Barry made when he came to this timeline. The other worlds reveal George Reeves' Superman, Christopher Reeves' Superman, and a Nicolas Cage Superman. Eek. The old version of Barry kills past Barry, and then future Barry returns to the corrupted timeline. He goes back to the day where his mother was killed and reverses what he did to save her. Knowing this means that she will die, Barry says goodbye to her and returns to the future. There he realizes that his timeline is once again back in order, and it is the day of his father's appeal in court. His father is able to walk free because of the new evidence provided by Bruce Wayne. Bruce gives Barry a call and says that he is outside the courthouse, but when Barry greets him, it is once again not the Bruce he once knew, but this time, George Clooney. What I want to know is why Barry's parents have such an impact on the state of the world. If his mom lives, Superman dies as a baby, Marty McFly is played by a different actor, Batman is Michael Keaton, Superman is Nicolas Cage in some other universe, what the hell is happening? This movie feels like a desperate attempt at trying to keep up with the times. They saw what Marvel was trying to do with the multiverse and made their own version of it, which was far inferior. This movie started with CGI babies falling out of the sky, and it really didn't get that much better from there. I like the character of Barry Allen, and I feel like the emotional depth of him having to say goodbye to his mother was definitely the strongest moment in the film. I feel like they could have made him a really solid movie about the consequences of time travel if they just kept it a little more grounded and didn't include any of the Zod stuff. That's really all I have to say about it. 9 out of 25. Jaime Reyes is a college graduate hoping to turn things around for his struggling family in Palmera City. He gets a job as a cleaner for billionaire and CEO Victoria Cord, but is fired after he stands up to her to defend her niece, Jenny Cord. Jenny, feeling bad, offers Jaime a new job at the office and tells him to come by the next day. Jaime shows up, but Jenny is unable to talk because she is seemingly in a rush to get somewhere. She asks him if he's willing to do anything for a job, and when he says yes, she hands him a lunchbox and tells him to hide it and not open it. Jaime is convinced by his family to open the lunchbox, and they find a scarab that Jenny stole back from her Aunt Victoria. The scarab then attaches itself to Jaime and gives him a beetle-like suit. It flies him around the city testing its features and brings him back home to his very nervous family. Jenny arrives at the Reyes house and explains that the scarab once belonged to her father and that her aunt stole it to use it for evil. Jaime, Jenny, and his Uncle Rudy travel to Jenny's father's house, Ted Cord, and finds his blue beetle lair. There, Rudy discovers that the only way to get the scarab off of Jaime is to kill him because it is becoming one with his brain. Victoria also used the scarab to create her invention, the OMAC suit, which she intends to form her own army of enhanced soldiers with. She needs it back so the suits can achieve their full power. While at Ted's, Jaime sees a helicopter approach his family's house, and he uses his suit to fly there. He is able to rescue most of his family, but his father has a heart attack from the stress, and while Jaime is distracted, he is captured by Victoria. While in captivity, Jaime's father passes away. Jaime is then taken to a OMAC facility on an island off of Cuba, where he is hooked up to a machine to extract the powers from the scarab. Jenny helps Jaime's family prepare to rescue him. While unconscious in a space between life and death, Jaime sees his father, knowing that he has died. His father gives him the courage to fight back, and he is able to escape from captivity. Jaime finds his family in the facility, and together they fight Victoria and her goons. In a one-on-one battle with Carapax, the first soldier Victoria ever experimented on, Jaime is able to access his memories and finds out that Victoria is the reason why his his whole family died. Jaime is able to convince him that Victoria is the real enemy, so Carapax kills her. Back at the Reyes' destroyed home, Jenny, the new CEO of Cord, vows that the company will help them rebuild it. Jaime walks Jenny to her bike where the two share a kiss before flying off to Ted Cord's mansion together. In a mid-credits scene, a signal comes through Ted's computer revealing that he is alive. This movie has some of the most likable characters that I've ever seen in any of these films. The family is funny and charismatic, and it would be really hard not to root for them. They're essentially an underdog story. The dialogue is a little on the nose in the beginning, and I wish they did a lot more showing and a lot less telling about the state of the world and how rich people suck and they are the marginalized community that are about to lose their home because of said rich people. I really like when these movies feel like other movies with superhero elements within them, like a comedy that just so happens to have superheroes in it. Essentially, I don't think that this one relies on the stereotypical superhero movie beats the same way that Shazam 2 does. They're definitely in there, but I don't think they do the heavy lifting. The visuals looked good. I liked the message about family and how it makes you strong, and I liked the chemistry between Jaime and Jenny. 16.5 out of 25. Just guys being dudes. Aquaman sums up his life after the events of the first Aquaman and reveals that he and Mera got married and had a baby, Arthur Jr. Since then, he has also been the king of Atlantis, protecting the ocean and doing his diplomatic duties. Meanwhile, Black Manta is still on the hunt for Aquaman with help of scientist Dr. Shin. While on an exploration, they discover a trench in the Arctic that leads to a hidden world underneath the ice. There, Black Manta discovers a black trident which gives him the powers of Kordax, the old ruler of the Lost Kingdom, Necrus. Also in the trench is a lot of Atlantean technology that needs a special element to be powered. Black Manta then invades Atlantis and steals their element from them, which emits a lot of greenhouse gases, warming the seas and destroying the ecosystems on both land and sea. Arthur then turns to his brother Orm for help and breaks him out of the Fisherman Kingdom he is being held prisoner in for killing their king. Together they travel to Necrus, where Black Manta has fully taken on the power of Kordax. After taking the Black Trident from him, Kordax is awakened and the Trident begins to possess Orm. Arthur and Orm fight, and then they fight Kordax together. After defeating him, Arthur lets Orm go free and he exposes their existence to the surface world, pleading that if they work together, they can solve global warming. I'm sorry if a majority of that summary is wrong. I did not feel like rewatching any part of this movie to fix it. This movie is mainly about two brothers trying to mend their relationship, but because Aquaman is so unlikable and brutish and big dumb jock-like, I don't care. They make Mera a mother and wife in this one, and then they just completely forget about her. She was the best part of Aquaman 1 for me, and she's barely in this one. So I hated that. I don't even like Aquaman, really. I don't think he's funny. I don't think he's a good king. I'm not even sure if he's a good person. Not even giving this man a baby makes him any more likable for me. They try to give this movie a message about global warming and taking care of the planet, but because so many other things happen in this one, it really doesn't become obvious until the final monologue of the movie where he gets on the microphone and says, "I am Aquaman." I think it was their attempt at poking fun at the "I am Iron Man" moment, or at least that's what it felt like. Like, oh, let's just make fun of one of the most iconic moments in Marvel history ever. It feels like with this one, they totally just threw in the towel. Like, they knew their run of these types of DC movies was coming to an end, so they were just like, let's end it on one last bad Marvel joke. 7.5 out of 25. I am so fucking sick of watching DC movies. 2 years after the events of the first Joker, Arthur Fleck is being held in Arkham State Hospital as he awaits his trial. His lawyer is trying to prove to the jury that the Joker persona Arthur had on when he killed Murray Franklin was actually a split personality responsible for the murders, and therefore Arthur should not be sent to prison or given the death penalty. He should be institutionalized at a mental hospital. In a different part of Arkham, Arthur meets Lee, a fan of him who was admitted by her mother after she set their apartment on fire. The pair engage in a romantic relationship until Lee is released from Arkham, saying that the doctors believe that Arthur is a bad influence on her. Even separated, Lee attends Arthur's court hearings every day and encourages him from afar. Arthur's lawyer, Mary Ann, thinks that Lee should not be there and tells Arthur that she's been lying to him and that she was not admitted to the hospital by her mother. She actually admitted herself. Also, her parents are rich. Arthur confronts Lee, and she admits that all she wanted to do was meet Arthur and that she is pregnant. During one of the trials, Arthur fires his lawyer and begins to represent himself, which he is not very good at. During his closing remarks, Arthur reveals that there was no Joker, and that the crimes he committed he did fully as himself. Upon hearing this, Lee leaves the court, and so does some of Arthur's followers. The jury finds guilty of all of his crimes, but while the verdict is being given, the courthouse is bombed, and Arthur runs free to find Lee at his iconic staircase. He tells her that since he is free, they can finally run away together, but Lee rejects him, saying that the fantasy is broken. He is found by the police and then brought back to Arkham. While there, he is called to the hallway because he's told he has a visitor, but another inmate stops him, tells him a joke, and then stabs him to death. I liked the score. I didn't mind the musical elements. But other than those two okay things I have to say, I just don't think that this one had to be made. I think that the Arthur that is presented to us in the first Joker made some good points. You can almost see his point of view and low-key root for him, murder aside. But I feel like the continuation of that story in this film completely puts that message to shame. I think the focus on whether or not Arthur was clinically insane or mentally ill or just a bad guy is not the point of Joker. I actually think that it's quite clear that his mental illness, whether that be DID or not, and his childhood trauma are a really big part of who he is. In fact, I think the only message that you can take away from this one is that people who have mental health crises in the criminal justice setting are not cared for properly and therefore get even worse, rot somewhere, or die. But again, I don't think that's the point of Joker. I think that Arthur Fleck is a guy who felt so rejected and mistreated by society that he radicalized himself to get his message across. I'm also just waiting for someone to tell the story of Harley Quinn properly, because I don't even know what she was really doing in this movie. I think that a better story would have been told through the eyes of the woman who was Harleen Quinzel and how she became this mega Arthur Fleck fan, majored in psychology, did everything that she can to get close to him, and then it all leads up to her attending his trial and then finding out that there was no Joker at all, rendering the last 2 years of her life pretty much meaningless. And then we could see what that sort of descent into madness does to a person. Maybe she's even the one that bombs the courthouse. I don't know. I don't think that this movie was a raging dumpster fire like everyone else did. I just think it was pointless. So I gave it a pretty middle of the road score of a 12.5 out of 25. And with that, I have now watched every DC film ever made. Okay, so I just saw Superman. It is July 11th, 2025. And I'm just gonna ramble my thoughts. Also, this is going to be a spoiler-filled review. Also, the girl that you see in all the other clips with her makeup on and her hair blown out, that's not the reality of the situation. This I just tripped on my... Okay. This is the reality of the situation. Yeah, I had to go to the theater all incognito because I didn't need the people seeing that Kelsey of Marvelous Movie Mondays was in the theater for a DC movie. Could you imagine the headlines? Like, it was good. I knew it was going to be good because anything James Gunn touches is good. And James Gunn is a big old comic book lover. He is a big old comic book nerd. So there's just like a level of knowledge with him and then a level of compassion that he pours into his movies, and he also just like has such a specific vision that makes it all his own. I guess I'll take this opportunity right now to say that Nicholas Hoult does an amazing job in this movie. I think he's just like a really good actor, but I think that he does really well in this role. And I think that Nicholas Hoult and David Corn Sweat? It's not Corn Sweat. Anyway, they both ended in the roles that they should have been. I know that Nicholas had also auditioned to be Superman, but it's like, no, he killed as Lex Luthor. He always should have been Lex Luthor. Oh my God, here's the other thing. Hold on, hold the phone, because if there's one thing I know about Lex Luthor after all of these damn movies, if there's one thing I know about Lex Luthor, it's that he wants land. He is a colonizer in his blood. He needs land. So what was actually going on between those two foreign countries is that Lex Luthor was arming the more powerful country to take out the weaker country because he said, once you take over that country, I want a cut of the land. And it was just... It hit a little too close to home to have this story about a more powerful country being funded by an even more powerful country to basically genocide a weaker country. If you catch my drift. The entire time, Lex Luthor is referring to Superman as this alien. He's like, the alien. And Superman's like, listen, that's where you're wrong about me, bub. I'm just as human as you are. I love, I bleed, I make mistakes. And guess what? The fact that I'm so human is the best thing about me. There's also another great shot of Superman towards the end where after a building has just collapsed and there's like a bunch of smoke, it clears and then Superman's just standing there. Costumes were great. Visuals were great. Not a lot of needle drops for a James Gunn movie. I think there was really only like 3. I wish there was more Lois Lane in it. I think that once Superman went into his final battle, she really took a backseat. You didn't really see from her or hear from her for a while. And I wish she just had more to do with it. There were really fun characters around Superman. Like Crypto the dog was like a fun character to have. Obviously Lois. Jimmy Olsen plays a really good role in this film. I think my favorite scene in the movie, just like my favorite scene from the Superman from 1978, was the interview scene between Lois and Superman, except this one went a lot differently. And I think that this is also probably my favorite scene because this is the best showcase of Lois in the whole movie. Am I happy that I watched all of the DC movies before watching this movie? Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Superman ones in particular. Do I think it's necessary to watch all the DC films before seeing this one? No. So message. The big takeaway that I took in this movie was Superman's an alien, but he's also just as human as the rest of us. You could even go a step further and say, like, people who are from other countries can be just as American as people who are born on American soil. That's a great message. I give that message 4.5 out of 5. The characters. I'll give characters 3.5. I'm docking some points for Lois, and I'm docking some points for the lack of fucks I gave about the Justice Gang. Visuals. I give the visuals a 4 out of 5. Style. I give the style a 4 out of 5. Rewatchability, I would happily rewatch this. I'm going to give rewatch 4.5 out of 5. So now I just have to do math real quick. Give me 1 second. Okay, so that means with those numbers that James Gunn's Superman film gets a 20.5 out of 25. Also, I just want to say I walked out of this movie and I saw little kids. I saw obviously like a lot of like young adults like me. I saw this like these 3 dudes that were probably in their like 70s. I was like, there's just something about Superman that brings people together. And I think like that was really beautiful to witness firsthand. He's just strangely like this this really unifying figure. This great, like, all-around good dude, does what's right. I think this movie is just, like, really gonna bring people together. So, what did we learn? What was the point of all of this? At the beginning of this video, I jokingly asked who makes better superhero movies, Marvel or DC. And as you can see from my side-by-side of my tier ranks, the C and D tiers are a lot more full on the DC side of the aisle. That's not to say Marvel hasn't come out with some duds. Had I included movies outside of the MCU like Morbius, I'm sure the playing field would have been a lot more even. My biggest takeaway from the DC movies specifically is that the ones that were most successful, in my opinion, were the ones that were stylistically very interesting. And the ones that were least successful were the ones that felt like they were beating the superhero movie dead horse over and over again. That is a terrible expression, by the way. I hated the imagery that just came to my head when I said that. Don't get me wrong, the MCU is full of movies that are pretty generic and has some bad ones, but I can't say that it has any truly heinous abominations that make me want to report the creators to the proper authorities and have them answer for their crimes against humanity. All in all, I had a really good time watching the Superman movies from back in the day. I'm really glad I experienced Watchmen, and I found a greater appreciation for Birds of Prey that I didn't even think was possible. It took me a really, really long time, but I'm glad I did this. And I'm so excited to have a life again. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching the first episode of Sorry I'm New Here, and subscribe for more. I really hate saying that. Do what you want. Okay, bye.